Warrior Lore. Chapter 1880. Du Xiaofu was stunned by Qi Yixi presence. However, Qi Yixi presence was without a doubt much more vigorous and terrifying than the domain realm. After all, Qi Yixi's domain realm was the nirvana of samsara. The domain realm that Du Xiaofu spoke of was the nirvana of samsara for Qi Yixi. The fact that Qi Yixi had made such a huge breakthrough so quickly had indeed exceeded Du Xiaofu's expectations. Du Xiaofu raised his head slightly and looked at the floating star of outer space. Du Xiaofu could not help but cry out in surprise. The stars in the sky that were originally filled with starlight and vast energy pressure had now become dim and dark. There was no longer any pressure or energy overflowing. It was as if all the energy and vast power that had originally enveloped the space had been exhausted and dried up. Huff! As he exhaled a mouthful of foul air. A power that shook space swept out, causing it to resonate. Qi Yixi woke up. Her eyes were covered with starlight, as if they contained a galaxy. It seems to be quite effective. Du Xiaofu pulled his gaze away from the star of outer space and smiled at the woman who had just woken up. I've improved in the mysteries of stars after the nirvana of samsara. I've benefited a lot. Qi Yixi obviously did not hold back at all from the man before her. The benefits that the star of outer space had brought her were not insignificant. However, when she looked at the dim star of outer space, her starry eyes rippled. She said, "Every time the heavenly stellar secret realm opens, the star of outer space will be drained of energy, and it'll take many years for it to recover." It doesn't seem to be that simple. Du Xiaofu stared at the dim star of outer space and raised his eyebrows. With the sharp power of his soul, he could sense a strange pulse from the dim star of outer space. The space within the star of outer space had cracked earlier. It did not seem like the star of outer space had just been drained of energy. Ka. The moment Du Xiaofu's words left his mouth, the sound of cracking came from the outside of the dim star. Then, cracks spread out like a spiderweb, and the star shattered. Boom! His voice reverberated in the air, shaking the void. The enormous celestial body that was suspended in the void collapsed like a falling cliff. Rocks and dust poured down like a waterfall. It was as if a storm of dust and rocks had fallen. Du Xiaofu pulled Qi Yixi and retreated tens of thousands of feet away. Only then did they manage to escape the impact of the rain of rocks. How could this be? Qi Yixi's beautiful face turned pale. The outer heaven star had a great relationship with the school of yin-yang, but it was completely shattered at this moment. A beam of starlight shot out from the falling dust and appeared in front of Qi Yixi like a bolt of lightning. It was so silent that even Du Xiaofu did not notice it. Qi Yixi only noticed it when the beam of starlight appeared in front of her eyes. Her beautiful face turned pale, but it was too late. This beam of starlight was too strange. It shot straight into Qi Yixi's forehead. The light was so dazzling that Qi Yixi had to close her eyes tightly. Then, the starlight disappeared. "Be careful," Du Xiaofu exclaimed. He wanted to stop it, but it was too late. "I'm fine." In an instant, Qi Yixi opened her eyes again. She was surprised as well. She looked at Du Xiaofu and said, "It's gone. I can't find it." Du Xiaofu formed a seal with his hand. A vast aura fluctuated, and runes shot out and enveloped Qi Yixi. "It's very strange." But a moment later, Du Xiaofu withdrew his hand seal. His face was also very serious. The beam of starlight that had just shot into Qi Yixi's body had disappeared. It was impossible to find it. "At least I'm fine now. Maybe it has really disappeared." Qi Yixi looked at Du Xiaofu as her red lips curled into a bitter smile. She had already checked her body with her mind. After the strange starlight entered her forehead, it strangely disappeared. It did not cause any ripples at all. "Be careful." Du Xiaofu was still a little worried. The star of outer space was very strange in itself. After it had completely disappeared, a beam of starlight had shot out. Maybe he was just overthinking. That beam of starlight had already dissipated. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for him to not find it. He hoped that nothing unexpected had happened. "The star of outer space does not exist. I have to go out and inform the elders immediately," said Qi Yixi. The star of outer space was extremely important to the school of Inyang. She had to inform the elders of the school of Inyang immediately. We should also go out. I wonder what it's like outside now. Calculating the time, it had been almost 3 months since they had entered the Tianqian space of the school of Inyang. Du Xiaofu was also worried about everything outside. Of course, Du Xiaofu was also worried about his barren kingdom. After all, he had too many enemies. Du Xiaofu had to keep an eye out at all times. He could not afford any accidents to happen to the barren kingdom. I already know about the star of outer space. It has been in the school of Inyang for so many years, and its fate with the school of Inyang has come to an end. It is a pity that no one in the school of Inyang has been able to truly comprehend the secrets of the star of outer space. Just as Qi Yeshi and Du Xiaofu finished speaking, a faint voice was heard. The heavenly devil battlefield has opened, and the great calamity has begun. All the major forces are moving, geniuses are competing, and sovereigns are competing for supremacy. The two of you should enter as soon as possible before saints can enter. As soon as the voice was heard, the void became calm. There were no more fluctuations. Yes, Moon Saint. Qi Yi, she looked up and bowed respectfully. The heavenly devil battlefield has opened. Du Xiaofu's eyes shone with golden light. He had heard of the heavenly devil battlefield many times. Dongxian, Nanru, and the others had also said that saints were not allowed to fight before the heavenly devil battlefield opened. But now that the heavenly devil battlefield had opened, the ban was no longer restricted. Several hours later, in the great hall of the school of Inyang, Qi Mingxian stared at Du Xiaofu carefully, and his expression changed. He seemed to have sensed something and could not help but ask, "Have you broken through to the undying realm?" "I have some insights. I have to thank the Lord for granting me this." Du Xiaofu nodded. There was nothing to hide. Qi Mingxuan's expression was somewhat sluggish. He stared at Du Xiaofu and felt speechless. The man before him had only cultivated for a short period of time, and he had already surpassed him. In such a short period of time in the secret realm of Tianqian, he had broken through to the undying realm. It took Qi Mingxian, a supreme being of the older generation, nearly 1,000 years to break through to such a level. Fortunately, Uncle led the team to the heavenly devil battlefield. Qi Mingxian smiled bitterly and felt helpless. Fortunately, Qi Mingxian was no longer in the school of Inyang. If he knew that Du Xiaofu had broken through to the undying realm in such a short period of time, given the old man's arrogance, he would probably find a hole to hide in this time after being trampled on last time. Now that both of them were in the undying realm, if the two of them were to fight, the consequences of Qi Mingxian could be imagined. Chapter 1881. Qi Yeshi smiled silently as she looked at her father's shocked expression. She knew best that Du Xiaofu had fused and refined the bolt of spiritual lightning in the heavenly star secret realm. If her father knew about this, who knew how shocked he would be? He would probably feel heartache. A bolt of spiritual lightning was no ordinary object. According to the information my school of Inyang received, your father Du Tingxian has already led the people of the desolate nation into the heavenly devil battlefield. The 9 great clans, the Beast region, the Yao realm, and so on have all entered as well. The geniuses and sovereigns are fighting for supremacy. While they are purging the demons, they are also fighting for various ancient opportunities. After being surprised, Qi Mingxuan's expression immediately returned to normal. Looking at Du Xiaofu, he paused for a moment before saying to Du Xiaofu and Qi Yeshi, "After the two of you enter the heavenly devil battlefield, you have to pay attention to the Phoenix clan and the Dragon clan. It is said that the Phoenix clan has seen a lot of strange phenomena recently. It is rumored that Huang Ling has undergone nirvana rebirth and obtained endless benefits. In addition, the Phoenix clan is very secretive, and there might be a peerless talent emerging. Dragon 2 of the Dragon clan has also entered. Even Gongsun and Qin Gongsun were not able to deal with him." Hearing this, Du Xiaofu's gaze flickered. Huang Linger of the Phoenixes had already undergone nirvanic rebirth. He wondered how the little ant emperor was doing. Had he successfully undergone nirvanic rebirth and become a sovereign ant phoenix? As for the many strange phenomena that had appeared in the Phoenixes, even the school of Inyang was unable to reveal the details. Du Xiaofu guessed that little Xingxing might have already come out of the spirit sparrow terrace. As for the dragons, Du Xiaofu could already imagine from Qi Mingxuan's words that Gongsun Wuji and Qin Wudi were also afraid that Dragon 2 was definitely a terrifying existence. He was even stronger than Qin Wudi and Gongsun Wuji. And with his relationship with the dragons, if they encountered each other, they would definitely not be able to smile. Exalt. Have the golden-winged great rocks already entered the heavenly devil battlefield? Du Xiaofu asked Qi Mingxian. Hi, Lord. Shouldn't you change the way you address me? Qi Mingxian looked at Du Xiaofu, his eyes raised, and the corner of his mouth slightly curled. Or are you planning to deny it now, brat? Let me tell you, I, Qi Mingxian, have a son and a daughter, but I especially doted on my daughter since she was young. She chose you, so I naturally have nothing to say. But if you dare to let her down in the future and let her be bullied in the slightest, I will definitely not let you off even if I have to risk my life. Father. Qi Yeshi held her father's hand and blushed. She secretly looked at Du Xiaofu with a sly smile in her eyes. She was clearly warning Du Xiaofu not to bully her in the future. But at this moment, Qi Yeshi was more happy in her heart. Her father's words clearly meant that he had officially agreed. This was also the attitude of the entire Yinyang school. Father-in-law, I will definitely not let Yeshi suffer in the slightest. In this life, with my life, I will not let anyone bully her. Du Xiaofu knelt on one knee and saluted. This was the attitude of his future father-in-law in front of him, and this salute was also his attitude. You are not married yet. Isn't it too early to call me father-in-law? Calling me Exalt is a little too formal. Actually, you can just call me uncle. Qi Mingxian looked at Du Xiaofu and smiled. Du Xiaofu was stunned. Father, why are you bullying him? Qi Yeshi stomped her foot and pouted angrily at Qi Mingxian. Look at you. You are not even married yet, and you are already siding with an outsider. Qi Mingxian smiled helplessly and immediately pulled Du Xiaofu to his feet. He patted Du Xiaofu's shoulder and smiled with satisfaction. I accept this salute. It doesn't matter if you call me father-in-law now or later. We will be family in the future. Don't treat me like an outsider. How could Qi Mingxian not be aware of the person in front of him? What was there to be dissatisfied about? On the other hand, Qi Yeshi stomped her foot and rolled her eyes at her father. He was clearly taking advantage of her, and yet he was still acting innocent. Then, she continued to stand beside Du Xiaofu. Du Xiaofu smiled helplessly. This future father-in-law of his was not an ordinary person. This pit was dug without a trace. But he could also feel that this father-in-law of his didn't treat him as an outsider. This pit was also one that he willingly jumped into. Let's talk about business. The golden-winged great rocks should be Jialo Jueyu. Jialo Kaling and the others have already entered, so you don't have to worry about the golden-winged great rocks. That clan's foundation is not ordinary. Even with your relationship with the golden-winged great rocks, the dragon race, the school of legalism, and the school of vertical and horizontal wouldn't dare to really touch the golden-winged great rocks. They only dare to touch you, since you're the instigator. If they touch you, they can say something, and the golden-winged great rocks will know the reason. But if they dare to openly attack the golden-winged great rocks, the golden-winged great rocks will not let it go. If the golden-winged rock clan doesn't dare to touch them, the golden-winged rock clan won't let them off easily. Qi Mingxian looked at Du Xiaofu and said with a smile that was not a smile, there is still someone in the golden-winged rock clan that everyone in this world has to fear. It is rumored that this senior has reached the end of his life. But as long as there is no confirmed news, no one in this world, including the 9 great clans, the dragons and the phoenixes, would dare to provoke the golden-winged rock clan. There is still a hidden expert in the golden-winged rock clan? Hearing this, Du Xiaofu was surprised in his heart as well. He was able to discern from the words of his father-in-law, Qi Mingxian, that there seemed to be an extraordinary expert within the golden-winged rock clan, and it caused the various great powers in the world to be deeply afraid of it. Kid, you have entered the heavenly devil battlefield. Although Saint Realm experts are still unable to enter, you still have to be extra careful. The feud between you and the legalism is not ordinary. They will definitely not let you off easily. Once there is an opportunity in the heavenly devil battlefield, they will not let it go. You have to be extra careful, Qi Mingxian said to Du Xiaofu seriously. They'd better not meet me. Du Xiaofu smiled faintly. Saint Realm experts were still unable to enter the heavenly devil battlefield. Once he met the legalism, the school of vertical and horizontal, as well as the dragons, it was hard to say who would deal with who. Of course, if he met the legalism and the others in the heavenly devil battlefield, Du Xiaofu did not plan to be courteous. Father-in-law, I plan to go directly to the heavenly devil battlefield and will not return to the desolate country. I'll have to trouble you to take care of my desolate country. He was not afraid of meeting the dragons, the school of vertical and horizontal, but Du Xiaofu could not help but worry about the desolate country. The prohibition of Saint Realm experts not being able to fight no longer existed, especially the legalism, who was extremely shameless. Once a Saint Realm expert attacked the desolate country would not be able to resist. Even if a domain realm expert attacked, most of the desolate country's experts would have entered the heavenly devil battlefield. The desolate country would not be able to resist, so Du Xiaofu could not help but worry. Don't worry, those Saint Realm experts can't just attack as they wish. Once there's any movement, I believe that the golden-winged Great Peng Bird clan will not stand idly by. Besides, once my school of Yinyang learns of this, we will know what to do. Qi Mingxian smiled faintly and said, I believe that the legalism and the other Saint Realm experts will not dare to go on a killing spree. You have Fui Bai and the others behind you, so their main target will definitely be you. If those experts attack others, it would not be a wise choice. Chapter 1882. It's still not enough. I must step into the Saint Realm as soon as possible. A wisp of golden light flashed in Du Xiaofu's eyes, and a resolute look appeared on his face. Although he had already stepped into the immortal realm, this world was still the world of the Sage Realm cultivators after all. A Domain Realm cultivator was enough to move unhindered, but a Sage Realm cultivator wouldn't be enough to deal with him. Du Xiaofu had always possessed the strength to fight against those who were at a higher level than him. However, he was well aware that the Sage Realm and the Domain Realm were the real dividing line between the super experts. The difference between the two realms was like the difference between heaven and earth. His current level of cultivation and strength was enough for him to not feel much pressure from those below the Sage Realm. However, he would definitely feel pressured if he were to encounter a genuine Sage expert. Although there were such experts in the Golden Wing Great Peng clan, and the Yinyang school, Long family, and Imo family had a good relationship with him, the desolate country didn't have a true Saint Realm expert to hold down the fort in case of an emergency. After all, Old Lei was only a half-step Saint Realm expert. Fui Bai, what's the origin of this old fellow? Du Xiaofu muttered in his heart. He was becoming more and more astonished by Fui Bai's identity, especially after the appearance of Fui Bai and Ouyang Shuang's master, Crazy Old Man. They could easily trample on Saint Realm experts, which was simply shocking. This also made Du Xiaofu decide that the next time he met Fui Bai, he would definitely ask him properly. The three chatted for a while before Du Xiaofu and Qi Yeshi left the Yinyang school and headed for the heavenly devil battlefield. Qi Mingxian personally sent them off. At the entrance of the Yinyang school, Qi Mingxian stopped Qi Yeshi. He looked at his beloved daughter with a gentle and loving gaze and said softly, "That kid is pretty good, and I have nothing to say. The elders in the family probably won't be able to say anything either. He doesn't seem like someone who would bully you. However, I still have something to tell you. If that kid makes you angry in the future, don't tell me, because you will forgive him sooner or later. In my heart, I won't allow anyone to make you unhappy. However, if that kid really bullies you, don't hide it from me." "Thank you, father." Qi Yeshi knelt on the ground and kowtowed 3 times respectfully. Tears welled up in the corners of her eyes, but she quickly retracted them. How could she not understand her father's intentions? "You silly girl, hurry up and go. Be careful in the heavenly devil battlefield. The future of the school of Yinyang rests on your shoulders. Your talent is greater than your brother's, so the responsibility naturally rests on your shoulders. Remember to return safely." The light in Qi Mingxuan's eyes fluctuated. How could he be at ease when the heavenly devil battlefield was still uncertain? However, as the lord of the school of Yinyang and a cultivator, he knew that his daughter had to enter the heavenly devil battlefield this time. Daughter will definitely return safely. Chi said goodbye to her father and left. She knew that her father was worried about her, so she left behind a confident smile before leaving with Du Xiaofu. Whoosh whoosh. The two figures turned into rainbows and disappeared in midair after a few flashes. What did your father tell you? In midair, Du Xiaofu asked Qi. Qi had a smile on her face. Her beautiful figure followed beside Du Xiaofu. Her hair fluttered in the wind, moving one's heart and soul. Her red lips parted slightly as a sly smile appeared in her eyes. My father told me that if you dare to bully me, he won't spare you. How would I dare to bully you? Du Xiaofu smiled bitterly. He still remembered that he didn't get the upper hand in Tianwu Academy. That's more like it. Qi smiled. Starlight rippled under her feet, and the graceful guidance drew a graceful arc in the air, speeding up ahead. Du Xiaofu's figure stopped in midair. Looking at the graceful guidance, a smile appeared on his face. Golden light flickered under his feet, and his figure drifted like a deity as he immediately chased after her. The Heavenly Devil battlefield was a place outside the Kyushu domain of the three continents. It was called the Void Plains by the elders. It was rumored that it was a land of death. Birds couldn't set foot on it, and neither could humans nor beasts. Even time lost its meaning there. Therefore, very few people knew about the Void Plains, and no one would go there. But recently, the Void Plains had been in an uproar. It was all because the Heavenly Devil battlefield had opened on the Void Plains. It had attracted all the supreme geniuses of the current era and alarmed all the forces of the current era. Whoosh! 2 days later, the sound of wind breaking could be heard in the calm void. Then, two figures flashed across the void. The Heavenly Devil battlefield is a battlefield left behind from ancient times. The main battlefield of the great calamity of the world was there. Rumor has it that the supreme expert and the dragon god sealed those demons in Kyushu. At best, there are only a few scattered demons. The real demons are in the Heavenly Devil battlefield. The ancient ancestors of the various forces are there as well. However, after so many years, those ancient ancestors of the various forces have reached the end of their lifespan. Or perhaps they have already perished. It's impossible for them to survive. This time, the various forces have sent people into the Heavenly Devil battlefield not only to investigate the situation of the revival of the ancient demons, but also to find the inheritances left behind by the ancient ancestors that were sealed in the Heavenly Devil battlefield. Those inheritances are very ancient. That was the most glorious and peak of the various forces. Once you obtain those inheritances, you will regain your glory. In midair, Qi told Du Xiaofu about the history of the Heavenly Devil battlefield. She also sighed. Back then, did the 9 great families, the dragons, the phoenixes, and the others all help the supreme expert and the dragon god seal the demons? Du Xiaofu didn't expect that there were so many other things happening in the Heavenly Devil battlefield. It was no wonder that the various forces were so active. Actually, they didn't really help. Qi smiled bitterly. She said, actually, the 9 great families didn't listen to the supreme expert willingly. As far as I know, many forces of the 9 great families have always been dissatisfied with the ban that the supreme expert left behind. If it weren't for the mysterious Eastern deity, Southern Ru, Western Yao, and the others, people from the 9 great families would have come out long ago. Du Xiaofu narrowed his eyes when he heard that. He became more and more curious. He asked Qi, is there some hidden story? Qi sighed helplessly. She said, when the Heavenly Devil battlefield was sealed, many of the various forces, including the ancient ancestors of the 9 great families, were also sealed inside. They couldn't withdraw at all. Almost all of the outstanding experts of the various forces and the 9 great families were buried in the Heavenly Devil battlefield. Many of the inheritances of the various forces were also directly buried in the Heavenly Devil battlefield. I see. Du Xiaofu finally understood. When the Lord of 3,000 cosmoses and the Dragon God sealed the Heavenly Devil battlefield, it was impossible for them to withdraw the experts of the various forces at that time and seal them inside. Those ancient ancestors of the various forces represented the glorious era of the various forces and the 9 great families. This seal also completely buried them. One could imagine the feelings of the various forces and the 9 great families. Chapter 1883. The great tribulation of heaven and earth has descended once again. If we can't stop it, then even if we can obtain those inheritances, they would be useless. After a moment, Du Xiaofu said, the great tribulation of heaven and earth had already begun. Once those demons revived, the world would become a demonic domain. What use would it be to obtain those inheritances then? It is said that the 9 great families, the dragons, and the phoenixes are not as simple as they appear on the surface. Even if the great tribulation of heaven and earth descends once again, they might still have a way out. Therefore, if we want to rely on the 9 great families, the dragons, and the phoenixes to truly work together to resist this great tribulation of heaven and earth, I'm afraid that it won't be too easy. However, I've only heard about this occasionally. Qi Yeshi said to Du Xiaofu, of course, if the great tribulation of heaven and earth descends once again, obtaining those inheritances will also increase our chances of resisting the great tribulation of heaven and earth. I hope that all the major powers can think this way and work together. I hope so, Du Xiaofu said solemnly. Oh right, there's something that you might not know. It is said that the one who suffered the most losses in the heavenly devil battlefield back then was not the 9 great families, nor the dragons and phoenixes. It was another major power. Almost all of their experts were buried in the heavenly devil battlefield. If that major power had not suffered such great losses back then, I'm afraid that the 9 great families, the dragons, and the phoenixes would not be reigning supreme now. Even if they were not the most dazzling, they would still be shining brightly. Qi Yeshi said to Du Xiaofu with a smile. What kind of power is that? Could it be the golden-winged great Pungbird clan? Du Xiaofu was quite curious. Apart from the 9 great families, the dragons, and the phoenixes, only the golden-winged great Pungbird clan had the qualifications to do so. The golden-winged great Pungbird clan is powerful, but they have never interfered in the affairs of the world. Qi Yeshi shook her head and said to Du Xiaofu, that power has a lot to do with you and me. Does it have anything to do with both of us? Du Xiaofu was even more curious. He thought carefully in his mind and murmured softly, rumor has it that there are the White Tiger clan, the Dark Heavenly Tiger clan, and the Black Tortoise clan in this world. Could it be them? However, these 2 clans are very far apart and have nothing to do with each other. The Tiger clan is indeed very strong. Rumor has it that the White Tiger exists in this world. However, no one has seen it in this world. Even the Dark Sky Tiger has long disappeared. Even the Black Tortoise seems to have only been heard of. Qi Yeshi looked at Du Xiaofu and slowed down. The force I'm talking about isn't the tiger race or the Black Tortoise race. At this point, Qi Yeshi paused and her expression gradually turned serious. She then continued to speak to Du Xiaofu. The faction I'm talking about is Tianwu Academy. What? Hearing Qi Yeshi's answer, even with Du Xiaofu's composure, he was stunned. He didn't expect Tianwu Academy to be able to compete with the 9 great clans, dragons, and phoenixes. Back then, Tianwu Academy was located in the Dark Forest. Even though it had some reputation in the central region and its students were scattered all over the central region, it was still considered a second-rate power at best. Du Xiaofu never expected Tianwu Academy to be able to compete with the 9 great clans, dragons, and phoenixes in the ancient times. How could Du Xiaofu not be shocked? Seeing Du Xiaofu's shocked expression, Qi Yeshi smiled and said, in the ancient times, when Tianwu Academy was at its peak, even the 9 great clans, dragons, and phoenixes couldn't compete with it. Our Tianwu Academy had a glorious past, but almost all of the experts of Tianwu Academy were sealed in the heavenly devil battlefield, resulting in Tianwu Academy's decline. Even so, the 9 great clans, dragons, and phoenixes didn't dare to offend Tianwu Academy. Upon mentioning Tianwu Academy, Qi Yeshi couldn't help but feel proud as she was once a member of Tianwu Academy. Du Xiaofu took in a deep breath. It was no wonder why Qi Yeshi and his mother were once in Tianwu Academy. Given his mother and Qi Yeshi's identities in the School of Legalism and School of Yin-Yang, it was extremely abnormal for them to appear in the small Tianwu Academy located in the Dark Forest. However, after hearing about Tianwu Academy's glory, Du Xiaofu didn't find it strange anymore. Actually, when I entered Tianwu Academy, it was also arranged by my family. They hope to find something in Tianwu Academy. I believe your mother had the same goal as me when she entered Tianwu Academy. However, I didn't expect to meet your father. Fate is truly wonderful. A smile appeared on Qi Yeshi's face. Back then, she also didn't expect that she would meet Zhang Xian in Tianwu Academy. What does Tianwu Academy have that could tempt the School of Legalism and School of Yinyang? Du Xiaofu couldn't help but ask. Even though Tianwu Academy had an unimaginably glorious past, it had already declined. What else could it have that could tempt the School of Yinyang and Legalism? In the Heavenly Devil battlefield, the main force that resisted the demons wasn't the 9 great clans, the dragons, or the phoenixes. Instead, it was the ancient experts in Tianwu Academy. However, almost all of them were sealed and buried in the Heavenly Devil battlefield, leaving behind countless inheritances and treasures. Qi Yeshi didn't hide anything from Du Xiaofu and told him everything she knew. Legend has it that the ancient experts in Tianwu Academy were willing to be sealed in the Heavenly Devil battlefield. However, they were afraid that the inheritance of Tianwu Academy would be buried, so before they were sealed, they left behind a treasure for Tianwu Academy. When the seal disappears and the Heavenly Devil battlefield reopens, they would be able to obtain the inheritance left behind by the ancient experts and rebuild Tianwu Academy's glory. However, after so many years, the number of people who know about this matter has dwindled. There aren't many people left in the world, so no one has been able to find the legendary item. What did Tianwu Academy leave behind? Du Xiaofu's eyes widened as he pondered. Back then, the Divine Radiance Court had also been searching for something in Tianwu Academy. However, from what Du Xiaofu knew, Tianwu Academy didn't leave behind anything other than the ancient desolate space. If there was really that item and he could obtain it, he would be able to rebuild Tianwu Academy's glory. He wouldn't let Vice Principal Zhuge down. The Heavenly Devil battlefield is extraordinarily dangerous. Those demons won't die so easily. According to the information obtained by the School of Yinyang, the Heavenly Devil battlefield has practically become a paradise for demons. Every day, we'll have to face demons head-on. The deeper we go, the stronger the demons will be. Qi Yeshi said to Du Xiaofu, you also have to be wary of legalism, dragons, and school of vertical and horizontal. Be careful when the time comes. Du Xiaofu nodded his head. However, his thoughts were still lingering on Tianwu Academy's past glory that Qi Yeshi had mentioned. He hoped that he would be able to find the inheritance left behind by the ancient experts of Tianwu Academy. This time around, the Heavenly Devil battlefield was already facing a calamity. Du Xiaofu also hoped that he would be able to break through to the Saint Realm in the Heavenly Devil battlefield. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to deal with legalism, school of vertical and horizontal, and dragons. With the demons wreaking havoc, he probably wouldn't be able to protect his desolate country. So, the two of them turned into streaks of light and flew in the direction of the Heavenly Devil battlefield, crossing through regions. Wait! Du Xiaofu suddenly stopped in front of a lofty mountain range, where the steep mountain peaks were connected to each other. What's wrong? Qi Yeshi stopped beside Du Xiaofu and looked in the direction of the mountain range in front of her. Qi Yeshi released her consciousness but didn't sense anything special. Du Xiaofu raised his head and looked at the towering mountain range in front of him. He sensed the fluctuations of his Yuan spirit and his forehead glowed. His expression turned serious as he said, something's not right. It's too abnormal that there aren't any birds or beasts in such a huge place. Qi Yeshi's heart skipped a beat when she heard Du Xiaofu's words. Her eyes shone with starlight as she cautiously scanned the surroundings. Junior, your senses aren't bad. However, you're going to die today. Don't go to the Heavenly Devil battlefield. Suddenly, a cold voice rang out from the void. Following that, a ball of fire burned in the void. Heavenly fire swept out and turned into a flaming claw print. It tore through the void and quietly appeared above Du Xiaofu's head. Raging flames filled the void. This flame was very illusory. It wasn't an open flame, but it burned an area of space until it was blurry. Moreover, it carried a terrifying and vast pressure that could make all living beings feel pressure from the depths of their souls, causing them to want to bow down in worship and reverence. This pressure was too strong. Qi Yeshi's expression changed abruptly. Du Xiaofu looked at the flaming claw print in the void. Such a vast aura gave him a familiar feeling. Du Xiaofu had felt this terrifying pressure before. Although his cultivation was not what it used to be, this pressure was still terrifying. It was a kind of suppression of the realm. Holy martial realm. Du Xiaofu's heart trembled. He wanted to bow down and worship it. This was a vast and unparalleled pressure of the holy martial realm. It was filled with an unstoppable pressure. It was obvious that this holy martial realm cultivator had been waiting here to deal with him. He wanted to kill him. The thunder martial vein, the 8 trigrams profound, and the 5 spiritual thunders in his body. Du Xiaofu instantly activated them. In the face of the holy martial realm cultivator's attack, Du Xiaofu didn't retreat at all. He resisted with all his strength. Qi Yeshi was by his side. He couldn't let her suffer any harm. Qila. Suddenly, at this critical moment, the void quietly fluctuated. Immediately after, a beam of light shot over from the horizon. A monstrous aura descended, causing the entire world to suddenly dim. Qila. The ray of light pierced through the void and directly pierced through the terrifying flaming claw print. Suddenly, the flames swept out. The runes were dazzling, and a terrifying energy swept out in all directions. There was a buzzing sound in the sky. The sky darkened. It was as if the world had fallen into the night in an instant. A bright moon hung in the sky, filled with moonlight. Chapter 1884. However, upon closer inspection, the moon wasn't a real moon. Instead, it was a ray of light that wrapped around a beautiful figure. The figure was mysterious and beautiful, hazy and vast. It's the moon saint. Qi Yeshi was surprised, then delighted. The saint martial realm of the school of vertical and horizontal, the super expert of the school of yin-yang. Du Xiaofu, who was about to use his full strength, stopped. His eyes rippled with complicated emotions. He had sensed the familiar aura of flames outside the divine dominion before. It was the saint martial realm of the school of vertical and horizontal. The school of vertical and horizontal had set up an ambush here to kill him. The super expert of the school of yin-yang must have secretly sent him off from the school of yin-yang. Otherwise, he wouldn't have appeared here in such a timely manner. The heavenly devil battlefield is not far ahead. You two go first. A faint voice came from the alluring figure within the moonlight. Xiaofu, let's go first. The moon saint is enough to deal with him. Qi Yeshi immediately said to Du Xiaofu. The heavenly devil battlefield was right ahead. As long as they entered, the saint martial realm cultivators couldn't enter yet. Is the school of yin-yang really going to interfere? At the same time, a deep voice came from the depths of the void. It seemed to be very angry, and the void trembled. You're not qualified. These were the only words that came from within the bright moonlight. The hazy silhouette shook her wrist and clenched her fist. Suddenly, moonlight surged in the sky, and a river of stars appeared. A huge hand of starlight that was thousands of feet long suddenly took shape. It rotated with the stars, and then it slammed into the void in front of her. Attack together. A deep voice came from the depths of the void. A terrifying flame surged out and turned into a huge pillar of flame Xin Qi. Roar. A deafening dragon's roar shook the soul. A terrifying light suddenly appeared, like a cloud dragon soaring into the sky. Boom. The two terrifying forces instantly collided with the starlight handprint. When the 3 forces collided, a frightening wind ripple surged out in all directions. The steep mountains around them were directly shaken by the terrifying shockwaves and collapsed. Huge rocks rolled down, and dust filled the sky. Humph! Terrifying gales of energy swept out, and 2 muffled groans were heard in the air. It was apparent that the 2 who fought the moon saint from the yin-yang school had suffered some losses. Are there still dragons? I'll remember this. Du Xiaofu's golden rock wings unfolded behind him. He grabbed Qi Yeshi and turned into a beam of golden light that shot into the sky. The Saint Martial Saint from the school of vertical and horizontal and the Saint Martial Saint from the dragons had appeared at the same time. They had planned this all along, but the 2 of them seemed to be no match for the moon saint from the school of yin-yang even when they worked together, so there was nothing to worry about. To prevent any accidents from happening, Du Xiaofu knew that he couldn't be of much help. With Qi Yeshi by his side, he left for the heavenly devil battlefield. However, Du Xiaofu had already remembered this debt in his heart. The dragons and the school of vertical and horizontal were really taking him seriously. They even had a saint stage expert waiting to kill him halfway. Du Xiaofu had no idea what was going on behind him as he traveled quickly. However, he felt that the moon saint from the school of yin-yang should have no problem dealing with the saints from the school of vertical and horizontal and the dragons. A while later, a vast abyss appeared before Du Xiaofu and Qi Yeshi. Mist fell from the sky like a curtain. It seemed to be the end of the world. We'll reach the entrance to the heavenly devil battlefield after we pass through here, Qi Yeshi said. Let's go. Du Xiaofu didn't stop. The golden wings of the great rock flapped as his silhouette arced through the air, passing through the fog. A vast plain appeared before him. The plain was boundless. Demonic clouds floated and the voices of gods and demons echoed. A mirage-like scene appeared in the air above the plain. Mountains stretched across and the sky was dark. It seemed to lead to another world. Whoosh, whoosh, many beings appeared on the plain. None of them noticed Du Xiaofu and Qi Yeshi. The figures of these living beings soared into the sky and entered the mirage-like world. One by one, they were swallowed up by the light and disappeared. We'll probably be separated. That's the entrance. Because of the seal, the more powerful you are, the more you'll be suppressed. It's even more impossible for saints to enter, Qi Yeshi said to Du Xiaofu. The school of yin-yang had received a lot of information during this time. The school of vertical and horizontal and the dragons should have entered long ago, Du Xiaofu said softly as he looked up at the mirage-like sky. Of course, many have entered. The older generation, the younger generation, and some old people who have lived for a long time. Many who have not reached the Saint Plane have entered, Qi Yeshi said softly. That's good. Murderous intent flashed in Du Xiaofu's eyes. Golden light surged, but then it was restrained. He looked at Qi Yeshi beside him and gently pulled her into his arms. He left a kiss on her forehead and held her hand in his palm. Let's go in. Be careful. Okay. Qi Yeshi nodded. There was a faint blush on her cheeks, which made her look even more alluring. Swoosh. Two figures soared into the sky and entered the heavenly devil battlefield. When they entered the void, the space around them suddenly distorted. It was as if a void passage had penetrated the space. It was hazy. Walking in it was as if they were walking on the river of time between the present and ancient times. In the hazy void, the stars moved and the scene was blurry. Boom. Suddenly, the void trembled violently. Ancient runes flickered and the space was in chaos. There was a terrible pressure crushing down. This is the power of the seal. It hasn't disappeared yet. Be careful. Qi Yeshi cried out. The terrible power was so strong that it pushed Du Xiaofu and her away in an instant. Both of them were crushed and distorted by the void. How can it be so strong? Du Xiaofu was also surprised. His spiritual soul trembled. This terrible seal was too strong. The surrounding void seemed to be collapsing and cracks appeared. It was as if it was going to destroy Du Xiaofu's physical body. If Du Xiaofu's physical body was a little weaker, it would have been crushed. But even so, the terrible power of the seal was crushing down. There were ancient runes that strangely impacted Du Xiaofu's physical body, causing it to crack. At this moment, Du Xiaofu's immortal Shin body was useless in this strange void passage. He couldn't restore his physical body. Du Xiaofu's physical body was comparable to all treasures below divine artifacts. But at this moment, it was cracking. It was enough to show how terrible the crushing power in the void was. In an instant, the void kept changing. Qi Yeshi's beautiful figure disappeared. Rumble. The wind and clouds in the surrounding passage surged. The rumbling sound was sonorous. Violent energy surged and kept attacking Du Xiaofu. Walala. Du Xiaofu's golden rock wings that had just been withdrawn appeared on his back again. He activated the 36 true rock feathers and raised his speed to the limit. Profound energy surged within his body. Du Xiaofu was using all his strength. He flapped his wings and flew forward quickly. He wanted to enter the heavenly devil battlefield through the crushing void passage. Crackle, a purplish-gold bolt of lightning shot out. It carried an aura of destruction and dazzling lightning runes. It directly struck Du Xiaofu's physical body, making it impossible for Du Xiaofu to dodge. The lightning strike caused Du Xiaofu's hair to stand on end. The terrifying force of destruction had exceeded the region realm, and even an ordinary peak expert at the Overlord region realm would probably perish if they were struck by such a strike. However, Du Xiaofu managed to withstand it. Although his body was already cracking, when the lightning landed on his body, it actually helped. It was like injecting a refreshing agent into his cracked body, nourishing the thunder martial vein in his body. Immediately, the thunder martial vein covered the surface of his body. However, the burning pain from the lightning's impact was extraordinary. Du Xiaofu couldn't help but cry out in pain. Swish, swish. All of a sudden, a number of attacks shot out from the void. Du Xiaofu wanted to dodge, but the attacks were densely packed. He couldn't dodge all of them. Soon, he was struck by several attacks and injured his physical body. I have to charge out. Otherwise, I'll be in big trouble. Du Xiaofu realized that he was in real trouble. It was even more troublesome than what Qi Yeshi had said. The remnant sealing power was too terrifying. It seemed to be getting stronger and stronger. If he didn't find a way to leave, he would probably be trapped and in danger. A dazzling light turned into a sharp blade in the void and slashed at Du Xiaofu. It carried a mysterious force as it distorted the void and tried to imprison Du Xiaofu. Du Xiaofu flapped his wings and activated the 36 true rock feathers to the extreme. He also used the wave-like free steps at full strength. He was unpredictable and graceful as he dodged the attack with an astonishing movement technique. Swish, however, many strands of hair on the back of Du Xiaofu's head were cut off. It was extremely dangerous, and he gasped in fear. Rumble. The void was collapsing. The situation was getting more and more dangerous and worse. Du Xiaofu found it harder and harder to deal with it. He even used the pair of true dragon horns on his body. However, after a while, there were more wounds on his body. Faint golden blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. I can't go on like this. Du Xiaofu pondered in his heart. If this continued, he would really die here. The void was even suppressing his cultivation and burning his profound qi. The pair of true dragon horns that had transformed into 2 golden dragons that circled around him also began to dim. Suddenly, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled in the void. The purple gold light overflowed into the sky. Du Xiaofu did not hesitate and directly activated the purple thunder profound cauldron in his body. The appearance of the purple thunder profound cauldron caused the void to tremble. Du Xiaofu expanded the purple thunder profound cauldron and covered his body. He then hid inside the purple thunder profound cauldron. Rumble. The chaotic and violent attacks in the void kept attacking the purple thunder profound cauldron. The bright light was like a divine fire burning. But then, a strange scene appeared. That violent and terrifying attack, the terrifying crushing force in the void, suddenly began to dissipate and disappear into nothingness when it landed on the purple thunder profound cauldron. The purple thunder profound cauldron rotated and passed through the void. The purple gold lightning was dazzling. Not long after, it was pushed out by a huge and irresistible force. Chapter 1885. Boom. The void rumbled as a 3-legged cauldron of electric arcs struck the ground from the depths of the void, exploding like a bomb. Electric arcs surged, and the ground cracked as if a meteorite had crashed. A huge crater was created in the ground, and dust filled the air as the ground cracked. The purple thunder profound cauldron shrank and turned into a purple gold flowing light that returned to the palm of his hand. Du Xiaofu appeared in the crater. His body was somewhat deformed, and there were faint traces of dried golden blood on his body. His clothes were ragged, and his aura was chaotic. He had suffered heavy injuries. Du Xiaofu flew out of the crater and looked around. The sky was gray, and at the end of the void in the distance, there was a halo hanging in the sky. He didn't know whether it was the moon or the sun, but the light was dim and covered by a large red blood mist. The surrounding mountains were rugged and magnificent, but there were no signs of life. There were only some unknown weeds and plants scattered on the ground. Is this the heavenly devil battlefield? I'm finally here. Du Xiaofu took a deep breath. He seemed a little weak. I haven't reached the Saint Realm yet. Why is it so difficult to enter? Du Xiaofu muttered. That void passage was too terrifying. Those below the Saint Realm couldn't enter, and he hadn't reached the Saint Realm yet, but it was still so difficult. He had almost died to enter. However, a smile soon appeared on Du Xiaofu's face, as though he had just survived a calamity. He consoled himself. From a certain point of view, the fact that the remnant power of the seal was able to obstruct him meant that he was exceptionally strong. After taking a deep breath, Du Xiaofu circulated the qi in his body. He felt an invisible suppression in the heavenly devil battlefield, and he was enduring a huge pressure. This change made Du Xiaofu feel that Qi Yeshi was right. Saint Realm experts couldn't enter the heavenly devil battlefield, and even if they did, they would be suppressed by the heavenly devil battlefield. The surroundings were silent. Du Xiaofu released his consciousness, but his sharp soul perception didn't detect anything special. There were no living creatures around, and he couldn't find Qi Yeshi's whereabouts. With her strength, she should be facing less resistance than me. There shouldn't be any problem. Du Xiaofu thought to himself. With Qi Yeshi's strength and cultivation, she should be able to protect herself in the heavenly devil battlefield. I'll recover first, then plan. At the moment, Du Xiaofu's Qi Yeshi, in this dangerous heavenly devil battlefield, was full of dangers. Heavenly devil battlefield was filled with danger. Du Xiaofu was heavenly devil battlefield was dangerous. Soon after, Du Xiaofu found a place nearby and set up a simple restriction. Then, he sat down cross-legged and began to regulate his breathing. In the dark mountain range, a dozen figures were shuttling back and forth between the mountain peaks. They had concealed their auras and were hiding. It was obvious that they did not dare to fly high in the sky, as if they were hiding from something. The auras of these 10 figures were not weak. They were all martial royal realm. Among them, there was a white-haired old man whose aura was at the martial honorable realm. However, in the heavenly devil battlefield, such a level of cultivation could only be considered ordinary. Among the dozen or so people, there was a young and pretty girl who was probably only 17 or 18 years old. She was clearly being protected by the crowd, whether intentionally or not. Damn it, they are robbing us. We found the cave abode first, and the treasure recognized us as its owner. Yet, they still want to kill us. A young man was angry. His face was full of anger and unwillingness. He was about 20 years old. His cultivation was in the martial emperor realm, and he could be considered a genius. However, this youth seemed to have been ravaged and suppressed. His cultivation base and talent couldn't be compared to those supreme geniuses in the current heavenly devil battlefield. It's our Wei family's fault for being weaker than them. They are the school of vertical and horizontal. We were only able to escape when the ancient era's cave abode collapsed. Those people from the school of vertical and horizontal will not let this go. They will definitely chase after us. A middle-aged man said with a serious expression. If those people from the school of vertical and horizontal really do catch up to us, their target will only be me. When that happens, I will bear all the responsibility. Uncles and brothers, please leave first. We cannot allow our Wei clan to fall in this heavenly devil battlefield. The delicate and pretty young girl frowned slightly, her face somewhat pale. No. The middle-aged man said to the young girl, Jiajia, you are our Wei family's hope. This time, you have the extraordinary ancient era's treasure recognized you as its owner. You have a bright future ahead of you. Nothing can happen to you. However, the school of vertical and horizontal is not something we can stop right now. If we reach the end, please don't sacrifice your lives for me. The school of vertical and horizontal is too powerful. They are one of the 9 great families. They are not something we can fight against. The only ones who can fight against them are the desolate country of the central province. Unfortunately, our Wei family is far inferior to the desolate country. The young girl bit her red lips, leaving teeth marks. As one of the 9 great families, the school of vertical and horizontal was not something a small Wei family could fight against. Once the people from the school of vertical and horizontal caught up to them, the consequences were obvious. In the current world, other than the 8 great families of the 9 great families, the dragons, the phoenixes, the golden-winged rocks, and other supreme beast clans, only the desolate country of the central province would not fear the school of vertical and horizontal. Unfortunately, although the Wei family had some reputation in Shang province, they were far inferior to the Saman sword sect. How could they compare to the desolate country, which was like the sun in the sky? It was said that only the desolate country of the central province would dare to fight against the school of vertical and horizontal. All right, if the people from the school of vertical and horizontal really do catch up to us, we won't be able to escape. The white-haired old man spoke. His eyes glowed as he spoke in a low voice. But for the future of our Wei family, Jia and your cousins will leave first. The rest of you will block the people from the school of vertical and horizontal with me. Even if we have to put our lives on the line, we must leave behind the bloodline and hope of our Wei family. All right, all of you listen well. Do as your great-grandfather says. Take good care of Jia. She is the future hope of our Wei family. The middle-aged man who had spoken earlier spoke in a low voice as he instructed the younger generation. In the quiet space, spatial fluctuations gradually appeared in the air, and black fog surged. Silently, from the depths of the mountain, several beast silhouettes appeared. They were only a few dozen feet long and looked like jackals and wolves. They had sharp fangs, and their eyes flickered with a black and red light. Just based on their ferocious auras, they were all at the Beast Emperor realm. A total of 5 strange and ferocious beasts appeared quietly like a pack of wolves looking for food. Their ferocious eyes were fixed on Du Xiaofu, who was sitting cross-legged and adjusting his breathing. They slowly surrounded Du Xiaofu from behind. Oh woo! Suddenly, the 5 strange and ferocious beasts released a terrifying aura that shook the space. They pounced towards Du Xiaofu's juniors at the same time. They opened their bloody mouths and roared ferociously. Their terrifying auras swept out like a gale. Chapter 1886. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. However, at that moment, there was the sound of rushing wind. 5 streaks of light pierced through the air like lightning and instantly appeared behind the 5 ferocious beasts. They were 5 flying daggers that were only about 3 inches long. They were covered in runes and looked as if they were alive. They pierced through the backs of the 5 ferocious beasts and flew out from between their brows. Blood splattered everywhere, and the 5 ferocious beasts fell to the ground with a thud. At that moment, the golden light on Du Xiaofu's body, who was sitting cross-legged, retracted into his body. His resolute face instantly changed and turned into an unfamiliar face. This face was also very young, but there was an additional scar at the corner of his eye. His body shape had also changed quite a bit. All of this happened very quickly. After finishing all of this, Du Xiaofu opened his eyes. The golden light retracted, and the restrictions set up around him also quietly disappeared. Whoosh, whoosh, at the same time. A dozen figures also appeared not far behind Du Xiaofu. 5 flying daggers spun around and merged into one before finally flying into the space between the brows of a delicate and pretty young girl. It was this young girl who had attacked and dealt with the 5 strange ferocious beasts that had pounced on Du Xiaofu's back. Jia, don't cause any more trouble. Let's leave this place quickly. A middle-aged man spoke to the young girl who had attacked with a hint of blame in his voice. These demonic beasts have already been demonized. Their bones and blood have all been affected. Using them for cultivation and comprehension will only cause one to go crazy. What a pity. However, the young men and women felt that it was a pity. If these demonic beasts were killed in the outside world, it would be a huge windfall. It was a pity that the demonic beasts in the heavenly demon battlefield had already been demonized and turned into demonic beasts. Using the bones and blood of demonic beasts to cultivate would only do more harm than good. Many thanks. Du Xiaofu rose to his feet and swept his gaze across the group of people. Even though they had concealed their auras, the aura of their cultivations could not escape detection. They were all martial emperors. Only the white-haired old man who was their leader had the aura of a beginner martial honor. However, Du Xiaofu paid more attention to the girl who had just attacked. She was young, about 17 or 18 years old, but it was obvious that she was a dual cultivator of martial arts and talisman. Most importantly, Du Xiaofu sensed that the girl's primordial spirit was not weak. In terms of martial arts, it was already at the mysterious level. In terms of talisman, it was even at the 7 stars nirvana realm. Possessing such a level of cultivation at his age and not falling behind in both the martial Dao and talisman Dao, his natural talent was absolutely extraordinary. If he was able to obtain the nurturing of cultivation resources, then his future accomplishments could absolutely not be underestimated. As Du Xiaofu turned around, the group of people's gazes also fell on Du Xiaofu. Many of them looked wary. However, looking at Du Xiaofu's ragged body, his body had yet to fully recover, his hair was a mess, and his face was in a sorry state. Moreover, there were no powerful auras coming from him. Thus, those vigilant gazes gradually disappeared. There were even some gazes that became indifferent. They merely glanced at Du Xiaofu indifferently. Even though they did not show any disdain, they still looked down on him. These demonic beasts will appear at any time. You are seriously injured. Be careful when you are alone. The beautiful girl spoke to Du Xiaofu. Her eyes were calm. Then, she said to the white-haired old man and middle-aged man beside her, "Great-grandfather, fourth uncle, let's go." The white-haired old man withdrew his gaze from Du Xiaofu. He was a little curious and nodded slightly. Swoosh swoosh. The group of people then left. No one paid any more attention to Du Xiaofu. Du Xiaofu smiled faintly. He did not expect that he would be attacked by these strange demonic beasts not long after adjusting his breathing. Looking at the corpses of the fearless demonic beasts lying on the ground, Du Xiaofu did not care too much. Just now, if the girl did not make a move, these demonic beasts would have been killed instantly if they had collided with the restrictions he had set up. Moreover, when those demonic beasts had just appeared, Du Xiaofu had already noticed them even though he was adjusting his breathing. Stepping forward, Du Xiaofu curiously examined the 5 demonic beasts. They were not much different from the demonic beasts in the outside world. However, they had been demonized. There was demonic qi in their bodies and blood. Once this demonic qi entered a person's body, it was enough to cause them to go berserk and lose their mind. This is not a place to stay for long. Du Xiaofu frowned slightly. These demonic beasts appeared and disappeared mysteriously. It seemed that he could only recover as he walked. He took out a clean robe from his heaven-earth bag and changed into it. Suddenly, Du Xiaofu's eyes moved and his figure disappeared from the spot. Swoosh swoosh. Not long after Du Xiaofu's figure disappeared, there was the sound of wind breaking. 5 figures appeared at the place where Du Xiaofu had disappeared. With the appearance of these 5 figures, the surrounding void became hot for no reason. There was an extremely powerful pressure permeating the void. The 5 figures were not old. The oldest was only in his 40s. He was an honorable realm powerhouse. The other 4 were teenagers. The oldest was only in his early 20s. The youngest was only 18 or 19 years old. However, he was already at the peak of the complete martial emperor realm. He was only 1 step away from the honorable realm. It's the aura of those people. They just left not long ago. Quickly chase them. Those ancient treasures are not something they can have. The leader, a middle-aged man in his 40s, spoke. His eyes were like flames. The 5 figures only lingered for a moment. Then, they quickly chased after the beautiful girl and her group. When the 5 figures disappeared, Du Xiaofu's figure quietly appeared from the void. The school of vertical and horizontal. There was a cold light in his eyes. He looked in the direction that the girl and her group had left. Golden light flashed under his feet. Du Xiaofu followed closely behind. Overlapping mountains, a dark canyon. On a towering boulder, 5 figures looked down from above. Their bodies were emitting a blazing aura. Runes flashed, dazzling and blazing. The 5 figures looked down at the 10 or so people who were clustered in the canyon. Their faces were solemn and pale. Their eyes were filled with pity and disdain. The leader, a middle-aged man, waved his long sleeve. The surrounding void trembled faintly. He said, "You dare to take something that belongs to the school of vertical and horizontal. How dare you? We saw that cave first. The school of vertical and horizontal took it by force. You bullied us and killed our relatives. How can you be so unreasonable?" Among the 10 or so people who were blocked in the canyon, a beautiful girl spoke. Her face was full of anger. At that moment, Even though the dozen or so people were extremely furious, merely by sensing the presences of the 5 people from the school of vertical and horizontal looking down at them from above, they felt an invisible suppression and their hearts tremble. "Let's do as we agreed. You guys go. We'll stop them." The white-haired elder's voice rang in everyone's ears. His aged face was extremely serious. Chapter 1887. No, if I don't leave, I'm afraid we won't be able to leave. The young girl took a few steps forward and looked up at the 5 figures with blazing auras. She knew very well that with the cultivation and strength of the 5 from the school of vertical and horizontal, the elders in her family would not be able to stop them. They would not have the chance to escape either. The young girl bit her red lips and said, "Let them go. You only want the item on my body. They don't have the strength to fight against the school of vertical and horizontal." "Haha, do you think you have the ability to bargain with the school of vertical and horizontal? But you're smart, little girl." The middle-aged leader looked down at the crowd and looked at the young girl called Jia. He said with a hint of mockery, however, "I'm in a good mood today. I'll give you a chance. Hand over the treasure, and I'll let those ants go." "The treasure is on my body, and I can't control it. Only I can go with you," said the young girl. The treasure was dormant in her mind's Niwan palace. She could not control it now. Since things had come to this, she could only go with them. At least she could protect the elders, brothers, and sisters of the Wei family. "Jia, you can't. Retreat quickly. We'll stop them." The white-haired elder and the middle-aged man leaped in front of the young girl and blocked her path. The auras of several figures surged as they summoned their artifacts and Dao artifacts. They gritted their teeth and fought. "Oomph, a bunch of ants who overestimate themselves. You're asking for death." Among the 5 from the school of vertical and horizontal, a slightly older and extraordinary youth's face darkened. He had already lost his patience and was too lazy to speak. He looked down at the dozen or so people as if they were his prey. Then, his figure immediately dove down. In the blink of an eye, the figure appeared in front of the dozen or so people like a ghost. Blazing profound chi that filled the sky suddenly swept out from his body. Instantly, the surrounding space became like a furnace. The space distorted, and a terrifying heat wave rolled out. Seeing the momentum caused by the youth from the school of vertical and horizontal, the white-haired elder's face changed in shock. He had just become a martial saint. Naturally, he knew that the other party was already a mysterious martial saint despite his young age. Furthermore, he was a member of the school of vertical and horizontal. The difference between the two was too great. If they wanted to escape today, they could only rely on a miracle. "Retreat, quickly retreat." However, the old man did not retreat. He had no other choice and shouted at the young woman behind him. At the same time, he charged towards the young man. He did not hold back at all as he unleashed his newly ascended martial saint aura. A powerful attack immediately blocked the path of the young man from the school of vertical and horizontal. "You're courting death." The young man from the house of vertical and horizontal simply spat out 2 words. A cold glint flashed in his eyes, and the space around him began to distort. A terrifying, blazing energy began to spread throughout the canyon. He raised his hand and slapped out. A gigantic handprint was formed, and he arrogantly slapped at the old man from the house of Wei. Bang! The speed of the collision was very fast. When the two collided, the huge energy ripples suddenly exploded and surged out in all directions. The surrounding canyon cracked, and huge rocks collapsed and rolled down. Poochie! A mouthful of blood spurted out from the mouth of the Wei clan elder as his body smashed into the stone walls of the valley like a kite with its string cut. The impact caused the stone walls to explode as his body slid down. He stood up shakily, dripping with blood and looking extremely miserable and weak. He was simply no match for his opponent. Too terrifying. The hearts of the people from the House of Wei trembled when they saw that their great-grandfather had been seriously injured in a single move. Their opponent's strength was too terrifying. On top of the canyon, the middle-aged leader indifferently swept his gaze over them. His eyes flickered as he said in a dark voice, "Capture that woman alive. Kill the rest without mercy." When the middle-aged leader finished speaking, the youngest of the group, a 17 or 18-year-old youth, appeared near the young woman called Jia Jia at lightning speed. His eyes were cold as he said, "You seem to have some talent. However, the ants of the outside world will never be able to compare to our house of vertical and horizontal." "Jia Jia, be careful." Several people from the House of Wei cried out in alarm. They immediately rushed out to protect the young woman. "Ants, you're courting death." With a few cold shouts, two figures from the House of Vertical and Horizontal rushed over. Blazing profound energy surged out like lightning. With a wave of their hands, several figures were sent flying, each of them spitting out blood. This was because the two from the House of Vertical and Horizontal did not consider the House of Wei to be their opponents. They did not take them seriously and were intentionally mocking them. Otherwise, these people would have been completely annihilated. Chila. At this moment, the young man from the House of Vertical and Horizontal used his cultivation at the peak of the perfect martial emperor stage to throw a punch at the delicate young woman from the House of Wei. A terrifying, blazing air wave and sonic boom were heard, exploding in the canyon like firecrackers. The young woman's face turned serious, and her eyebrows were tightly knitted. In an instant, many formation flags appeared in her hands and gathered around her body at an extremely fast speed. She displayed her powerful primordial spirit strength and formation skills. A 7-star mysterious formation was instantly formed, covering the canyon and enveloping the young man from the House of Vertical and Horizontal. Rumble. Enveloped by the formation, the canyon shook and the mountains shook. Runes filled the sky, and a terrifying power descended, causing the clouds in all directions to move. Although this formation was only at the 7-star mysterious formation, it was extremely extraordinary. It caused the few people from the House of Vertical and Horizontal to stop and look at each other in surprise. A 7-star mysterious formation. Unfortunately, it's still a little weak. A deep and proud voice came from the formation. Terrifying, blazing runes rushed out from the formation. They were as hot as magma and rumbled in the canyon. Bang, bang, bang. Not long after, the formation suddenly exploded. Rolling, blazing flames rushed out, and a deep sonic boom was heard. Broken runes filled the sky and poured into the canyon, exuding a destructive aura. The young woman staggered back. The formation was forcefully shattered, causing her to spit out dark red blood. Her delicate face was pale. A deep, cold snort was heard. The young man from the House of Vertical and Horizontal pounced out from the broken formation. A claw covered in flames distorted the void and instantly arrived in front of the young woman. The huge power imprisoned everything. The chi and primordial spirit in the young woman's body trembled and were suppressed. She could not dodge at all. Her beautiful face turned pale, and despair surged in her eyes. The man from the House of Vertical and Horizontal was too strong. She was no match for him. Swish, however, at this moment, just as the young woman was in despair, a light yellow light suddenly rushed out from between her eyebrows like lightning, emitting the sound of wind and thunder. In an instant, the light yellow light turned into an ancient sword. It was covered in dazzling ancient runes. It rushed like lightning to the blazing claw and pierced through it. Ah! A scream was heard. The young man from the House of Vertical and Horizontal was screaming. His palm was dripping with blood, and his body staggered back. He clenched his right hand tightly, and there was a bloody hole in his palm. There was a terrifying power that injured his primordial spirit. Buzz. The ancient sword was filled with wind and thunder. It lingered in the void of the canyon and automatically turned into a huge sword around the young woman. It was like a huge beast hiding in the dark clouds. The terrifying aura seemed to have crossed time and space and descended from the ancient times. It was oppressive. It's that treasure. Above the canyon, the middle-aged leader of the House of Vertical and Horizontal revealed a blazing look. That was the treasure he was looking for, and its origin was extraordinary. Boom. Without any hesitation, the middle-aged leader of the House of Vertical and Horizontal rushed out with a blazing light. A vast amount of blazing chi swept out. The runes flickered and directly condensed into a blazing flame. It was like a sea of fire that came crashing down from above the canyon. The wind and clouds in the canyon suddenly surged. The terrifying energy that spread out from the blazing flame seemed to want to destroy everything. The cracks on the walls of the canyon continued to spread. The terrifying sea of fire enveloped the huge sword, wanting to imprison it. The ancient runes on the huge sword were blazing. A terrifying pressure erupted. Wind and thunder rumbled without end. It was not afraid of the middle-aged leader of the House of Vertical and Horizontal at all. The remaining 4 people from the House of Wei and the House of Vertical and Horizontal all raised their heads and watched anxiously. A pretty good treasure. A clear voice rang out. Just as everyone watched anxiously, a purple-robed figure quietly appeared. He strangely appeared between the huge sword and the blazing sea of fire. What's going on? Suddenly, a strange scene appeared. When the purple figure appeared, the huge sword began to rumble and faintly began to retreat, as if it was afraid of the purple figure. As for the sea of fire that the middle-aged leader of the House of Vertical and Horizontal had summoned, it was directly isolated when it was 3 meters away from the purple-robed figure. It was unable to take a single step forward. This scene made the House of Wei below the canyon dumbfounded. The 5 people from the House of Vertical and Horizontal also darkened their expressions. It's him. The young girl from the House of Wei's pale face was shocked. She recognized the purple-robed figure. It was the heavily injured man that she had saved not long ago. Who dares to interfere with the matters of the House of Vertical and Horizontal? Do you have a death wish? The middle-aged leader of the House of Vertical and Horizontal appeared above the sea of fire. His aura surged wildly, carrying the pressure of the House of Vertical and Horizontal. His eyes were like volcanoes that were about to erupt. The House of Vertical and Horizontal. The scar at the corner of the newcomer's eye was eye-catching. His hair fluttered in the wind. He raised his eyes slightly to look at the middle-aged man from the House of Vertical and Horizontal. A cold glint flashed in his eyes. As the mysterious runes on the talisman surged, he waved his hand and swept it. Bang! Quietly, the void trembled. An invisible wave appeared around the middle-aged man from the House of Vertical and Horizontal. The surrounding void suddenly exploded and collapsed without him noticing. Rumble. Instantly, the sky and earth trembled. The sea of fire in the surroundings also began to disperse, turning into broken flame runes. The energy spread and rushed into the sky. The middle-aged leader of the House of Vertical and Horizontal was directly annihilated in the collapsing void. Not even his corpse was left behind. Even his soul was destroyed. Goo goo. This scene made everyone suck in a breath of cold air. Their throats were boiling, and they could not regain their senses for a long time. The remaining 4 disciples from the House of Vertical and Horizontal were also dumbfounded. It took them a while to regain their senses, and their expressions changed drastically. Who exactly are you? How dare you kill someone from the House of Vertical and Horizontal? You will definitely be hunted down by the House of Vertical and Horizontal. You will beg for death. The slightly older extraordinary young man from the House of Vertical and Horizontal stared straight at Du Xiaofu and shouted. His gaze was cold. Who would dare to touch someone from the House of Vertical and Horizontal? There was a faint trace of fear in the depths of his eyes. Chapter 1888. Noisy. The scarred man spat out a single word. At the same time, he waved his sleeves. Walala. Instantly, everyone could clearly see that as the scarred man waved his sleeves, spatial energy ripples rippled out like waves. The energy spread out in all directions. Then, the remaining 4 members of the School of Vertical and Horizontal seemed to have sensed something. Their pupils constricted, and fear appeared in their eyes. The void around them distorted, and in a situation where they could not dodge at all, for white python phantoms pierced through their bodies. Bang, 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 bang. For deep sonic booms rang out, and the blood of the 4 School of Vertical and Horizontal disciples spilled across the canyon, their spirits destroyed. Everything calmed down after that. All the members of the Wei clan were dumbfounded and gasped. 5 powerful experts of the School of Vertical and Horizontal had been killed in an instant, clean and tidy. What kind of terrifying strength was this? To these members of the Wei clan, what kind of courage was this? Those were the members of the School of Vertical and Horizontal. How many people in the world would dare to touch them? The scarred man turned his head and looked at the giant sword in the void. He sized it up curiously, and his eyes flickered. He was moved. This scarred man was naturally Du Xiaofu, who had used a disguise technique to disguise himself. He had followed the school of vertical and horizontal all the way here, so naturally, Du Xiaofu would not be courteous to them. Not a bad sword, Du Xiaofu said softly as he sized up the ancient giant sword. He felt that it would not be inferior to Ouyang Shuang's Majiao sword. It's him, the one who was seriously injured. The members of the Wei clan recognized Du Xiaofu. Many of their faces flushed, and they did not dare to look directly at him. They had originally thought that he was a weakling. Who would have thought that this person was actually so powerful? Huff! A few of the Wei clan's youths gasped inwardly, their hair standing on end. They secretly rejoiced that they did not provoke that man earlier. Otherwise, they would not be alive now. Whoosh, whoosh. The giant sword glowed, dazzling in the void. Its pressure swept out and released a thunderous sound towards Du Xiaofu. Then, it shrank into a ray of light and returned to the girl's forehead. He is much stronger than those people from the school of vertical and horizontal. Would he kill for the treasure? Everyone from the Wei clan was on guard. They retreated and horizontal and horizontal and horizontal and horizontal and horizontal and horizontal. That scarred man, horizontal and horizontal and horizontal and horizontal and horizontal and horizontal, horizontal and horizontal and horizontal, horizontal and horizontal and horizontal and horizontal, horizontal and vertical and horizontal, horizontal and vertical and horizontal and horizontal. The world of the world cultivations horizontal and horizontal, horizontal and horizontal and horizontal and horizontal, horizontal and horizontal and horizontal and God Yin horizontal horizontal Che, red horizontal, 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 horizontal and horizontal, horizontal horizontal and horizontal, horizontal and horizontal horizontal horizontal. The girl looked at Du Xiaofu. Her pale face was still very moving. She understood the world of cultivators very well. Since the man in front of her could kill people from the school of vertical and horizontal, he probably would not let them go. Du Xiaofu looked at the people from the Wei clan in the canyon. His gaze swept across them one by one and finally landed on the girl. He said, "Don't worry. I've killed people for their treasures before, but I won't do it to you today. The commotion here will probably attract others. You're all heavily injured. I can escort you for a few days. You can also choose not to follow me." Whoosh! As soon as he finished speaking, Du Xiaofu's figure had already swept forward, no longer paying attention to the people from the Wei clan. He's gone. Looking at Du Xiaofu's departing figure, the people from the Wei clan were still in disbelief. They found it hard to believe that there was someone in the heavenly devil battlefield who did not kill people for their treasures. That man is too strong, and he killed people from the school of vertical and horizontal. Why would he protect my life for no reason? It's better for us to stay away from him. The middle-aged man called third uncle by the girl spoke. That scarred man made him feel wary, and he wanted to stay away from him. He's right. We're all injured, and the commotion here will definitely attract others. When that happens, our luck won't be as good. He doesn't look like he wants to deal with us. I think we can follow him. At the very least, he'll be able to protect us for now, the girl said to the group. She felt that the scarred man was a trustworthy person. Besides, they didn't have much of a choice at the moment. Jiajia, you're still young and inexperienced. Who knows what that person's goal is? It's best to be careful. The middle-aged man was a little worried. If he wants to kill us, he can do it now. There's no need to wait until later. I think we can trust him. The girl insisted. For some reason, she felt that the scarred man was a trustworthy person. His eyes just now were clear and penetrating. Those clean eyes of his made her feel very safe. She trusted her intuition. I think what Jiajia said makes sense. Right now, we have no other choice. If that person can protect us for a few days, it'll be great. A girl from the Wei family said, agreeing with the girl's words. At the moment, they were all injured. If they were to encounter anyone who wanted to attack them in the heavenly devil battlefield, they would be doomed. Besides, there were other dangers lurking around. Then let's listen to Jiajia. The white-haired old man nodded. There were still traces of blood at the corner of his mouth. He took out a pill from his chinkuan pouch and stuffed it into his mouth. Whoosh whoosh. Since the old man had already nodded, the others didn't say anything else. They all moved and chased after Du Xiaofu. In the air, Du Xiaofu didn't move too fast. He felt the movement behind him, but he didn't turn back. A faint smile appeared on his face. Although he didn't need the girl's help back then, he still owed the girl a favor. If he could protect her for a few days, they wouldn't have anything to do with each other in the future. As for the girl's treasured sword, although it was extraordinary, it was probably on par with Ouyang Shuang's Bian sword. If it was in the hands of the school of vertical and horizontal, the dragons, or the legalism, Du Xiaofu would have snatched it without hesitation. However, the treasured sword was with the young girl. Not to mention owing her a favor, Du Xiaofu couldn't even do something as simple as killing her and seizing her treasures. That treasured sword was extraordinary, but it was far from being comparable to Du Xiaofu's Purple Thunder Profound Cauldron. That treasured sword clearly had a spirit and had already recognized the girl as its master. Du Xiaofu wouldn't force it. In the air, Du Xiaofu was in front, and the people from the Wei family followed behind. They didn't get too close. This place is very secluded. I will set up a restriction so you can heal your wounds without worry. 4 hours later, Du Xiaofu's figure landed in an ancient mountain forest. He said to the people from the Wei family who had been following behind him. Chapter 1889. The Wei clan members landed on the ground, their breathing labored. They were already heavily injured, and after flying for so long, they were already exhausted. Thank you for saving us, senior. The young girl hesitated for a moment, then walked up to Du Xiaofu's side and bowed gracefully, her voice crisp. In her heart, this young man before her had such terrifying strength. He was definitely a senior who had cultivated for many years. Only then did Du Xiaofu take a closer look at the young girl. Although she was not devastatingly beautiful, she was definitely a beauty. She could not compare to Qi Yeshi, Sumu Xin, Zixian, Ouyang Shuang, and the others, but she was not much inferior to Ji Jian. Nodding slightly to the young girl, Du Xiaofu said indifferently, I'm not that old, so I'm not some senior. Also, that treasured sword of yours has automatically entered your Naiwan palace, but it has yet to truly recognize you as its master, so it cannot be controlled by you. Try to communicate with it with your primordial spirit. Perhaps you will have a chance to truly recognize it as its master. Thank you, senior. The young girl's voice trailed off, her bright eyes looking at Du Xiaofu. Her expression was somewhat nervous and awkward, not knowing how to address him. In the end, she said, I am Wei Jiejia, a member of the Wei clan of Shang Prefecture's Qingyun Island. How should I address you, sir? My surname is Qiao. Du Xiaofu did not say anything more. He casually set up a restriction nearby, then said to the Wei clan members, heal your wounds here before we set off, and a powerful talisman master at that. Wei Jiejia's eyes glowed as she looked at the restriction Du Xiaofu casually set up. As a talisman master herself, she could clearly see that this was a powerful talisman master. The other party was also a martial and talisman cultivator, but who knew how much stronger he was compared to her. Thank you, Sir Qiao. Afterwards, the old man and middle-aged man from the Wei clan stepped forward and bowed to Du Xiaofu. They were very polite, expressing their thanks for his protection. Du Xiaofu learned from Wei Jiejia that the old man was her great-grandfather and the middle-aged man was her third uncle. Du Xiaofu nodded. After finding a place to set up a simple enchantment, he took a few elixirs and some spiritual medicine. Then he continued to adjust his breath. Du Xiaofu had not been able to meditate for long before he was interrupted, and his injuries had yet to fully recover. At this moment, Du Xiaofu wanted to fully recover from his injuries before setting off. After all, this place was filled with danger. They could encounter dragons, legalism, and the school of vertical and horizontal at any time. Du Xiaofu had to be careful. Seeing that Du Xiaofu was already meditating, none of the Wei clan members dared to disturb him. Soon after, they all sat down cross-legged and began meditating as well. Time passed slowly. Du Xiaofu's body was shrouded in golden light. Energy lingered around him like rays of auspicious golden light blooming. After his physical body left the void passage, It was constantly recovering under the effects of the indestructible Xian body. The elixirs and spiritual medicine that Du Xiaofu had taken earlier were now being absorbed by the golden rock and circulating within his body. Du Xiaofu circulated his cultivation method, guiding the medicinal power of the elixirs to cleanse and replenish his physical body. As he healed, there was a faint sound coming from within his body like thunder. That was the sound of his physical body cleansing his limbs and bones. He was constantly recovering. Although Du Xiaofu's injuries were very serious in the void passage, he was recovering very quickly now. His entire body was glowing, faintly tinged with a purple-gold color. In just a few hours, Du Xiaofu's physical body had completely recovered. However, there were still some internal injuries in his body that were still recovering. Whoosh! After only one day, a golden light bloomed around Du Xiaofu's body. Accompanied by the purple-gold color, his physical body emitted a clanging sound. Every inch of Du Xiaofu's muscles and hair seemed to have come alive at this moment. They were gushing with light, as if there was a divine fire burning from the inside out of his body. Such a commotion also alarmed the surrounding members of the Wei family. Everyone opened their eyes and looked at Du Xiaofu. What's going on? What's happening to his body? Some of the younger members of the Wei family were astonished. The pressure that permeated through the void passage was domineering, sharp, and incomparably disdainful. It made their souls tremble. He's not an ordinary person. He's too strong. He's so strong that I can't see through him at all. Such a person must have an extraordinary background. The white-haired elder of the Wei family said, his face shocked and solemn. He had lived for a long time and had seen many things and met many people. His eyesight wasn't bad, and he could tell that the scarred man was no ordinary person. Perhaps he's also a supreme genius of this world. After a moment, the old man said these words. The young members of the Wei family looked at the golden figure with shock, yearning, and envy in their eyes. Inside the void passage, Du Xiaofu's body was surrounded by a dazzling golden light. His physical body was trembling, and a very powerful aura rushed out. The power it brought was astonishing, and it made the members of the Wei family want to prostrate themselves in worship. However, this pressure didn't last for long. Du Xiaofu opened his eyes. Golden light shot out from his eyes, and the resplendent golden light around him turned into golden talismans and secret runes, which were absorbed into his body. Crack! Du Xiaofu stood up. His body crackled like clangs, and his aura shook the void. Such an invisible style made the hearts of the Wei family members tremble. He's recovering so quickly. It seems like he's already fully recovered. The Wei family members were shocked. When they first saw Du Xiaofu, he was still seriously injured, but in just a day and a night, he had already recovered. This speed of recovery was simply inconceivable, like a miracle. Let's leave this place first. You can slowly recover along the way, and I'll travel with you. Du Xiaofu said to the Wei family members. He had already fully recovered, but he had to help the Buddha to the west. Although his injuries were all healed, the Wei family members had only recovered a little. In any case, they were extremely unfamiliar with this place, so they might as well travel together and learn more about it. The Wei family members nodded and followed Du Xiaofu. They were naturally very grateful that such an expert was willing to take them on another journey. I've only just entered the Heavenly Devil battlefield, so I don't know much about it. Can you tell me about the general situation here? On the way, Du Xiaofu slowed down and asked the Wei family members, wanting to understand the general situation here. So Mr. Qiao has only just entered the Heavenly Devil battlefield. The white-haired old man from the Wei family was very enthusiastic, and immediately told him everything he knew about the Heavenly Devil battlefield. The Heavenly Devil battlefield was very large, like a world of its own. It was the main battlefield of the great ancient calamity, so there were dangers at every step. There were many ancient formations, and demons and demonic monsters that could appear at any time. However, there were also many great opportunities here, and many disputes. Every time a treasure appeared, or an ancient inheritance emerged, there would be fierce competition, and various factions would clash fiercely. Chapter 1890. Within the Heavenly Devil battlefield, there were several mysterious places that ordinary beings didn't dare to enter. Kongsansi, Zhou Imo Runin, Sima Muhan, Hung Luan, Void Spirit, Yin Lihin, Qi Jejun, and others from the 9 great families. Long from the dragons, Feng Chao, Feng Han, and Huang Ling from the phoenix race. Jialo Jueyu, Jialo Kaling, and Jialo Juekong from the golden-winged great Peng race. There are also the desolate nation's 18 heavenly generals, Du Yunlong, Imo Tian Shao, Thunderhawk King, Mie Ming King, and others. These supreme geniuses of the younger generation illuminate the heavenly devil battlefield, and their fame surpasses many of the older generation. The Wei clan patriarch's heart trembled. These youths were too terrifying. They were all supreme geniuses, as rare as phoenix feathers and Qilin horns. There are also some pure-blooded descendants of powerful beast races from the Beast region. Rumor has it that there are some disciples from the Central Province's Tianwu Academy. There are also several powerful demons from the demon world, especially the Fire Cloud Evil God Dugufenshin, the Dark Hell Emperor Ming Yao, the Great Snow Mountain's successor Lian Qingrong, the Heavenly Fiend Yelu Han, and the Undying Spirit Demon Dongfang Qingmu. These fellows have mysterious origins. They aren't from the 9 great families, the Phoenix race, the Dragon's race, the Golden-Winged Great Peng race, or the Desolate Nation's other supreme geniuses. They are all extremely powerful. They've all entered. They probably haven't been idle during this time. I wonder what level they've reached. Hearing the Wei clan patriarch's words, Du Xiaofu pondered for a moment. He had interacted with these fellows in the divine domain. During this time, for the opening of the heavenly devil battlefield, Du Xiaofu had probably been idle. His strength and cultivation had definitely improved. And in Du Xiaofu's heart, the one he was most concerned about was the devil religion's moksha. Last time, he had narrowly defeated him. When the heavenly devil battlefield opened, he would definitely enter. He didn't know what level he had reached. Is there any news about someone called Du Xiaojing? As he pondered, Du Xiaofu asked. His younger sister, Xiaojing, was probably in the heavenly devil battlefield as well. I haven't heard anything about it. With our level of cultivation, it's impossible for us to come into contact with those people. However, I've heard that the dragons, legalism, and some experts from the school of vertical and horizontal are looking for the desolate country's demon king, Du Xiaofu. They've also attacked the desolate country's people. However, the desolate country seems to have the help of the school of Moism, the school of Yin-Yang, the school of agriculture, and the golden-winged great rocks. The school of legalism doesn't seem to have any advantage over them. Wei Clan's grandmaster looked a little embarrassed. Presumably, the Du Xiaojing that Mr. Chiao was asking about was no ordinary person. Although he had lived for a long time, the level of those people was too high for him to come into contact with. Everything he knew was just hearsay. Du Xiaofu's expression changed slightly without leaving a trace. With the level of cultivation of these people from the Wei clan, it was likely that they wouldn't be able to come into contact with more people. However, even though it was hearsay, there was no smoke without fire. Du Xiaofu wasn't surprised. The legalism, school of vertical and horizontal, dragons, and the others had been thinking about him all this time. They were planning to deal with the desolate country in the heavenly devil battlefield. Is the Du Xiaojing that Mr. Chiao asked about just now the Du Xiaojing? Is she the sister of the legendary central desolate country's rock emperor, the demon king, Du Xiaofu's twin sister? However, it's said that she has always been practicing legalism, Wei Jia said. She had heard many rumors when she was in the Wei clan. That's right. Du Xiaofu nodded. It's a pity that our level of cultivation is too low. We can't come into contact with those supreme geniuses, Wei Jia said apologetically. However, she kept looking curiously at Du Xiaofu. Those supreme geniuses are very strong. However, I'm sure that with Mr. Chiao's talent and strength, you'll be able to contend with them. I'm afraid that it won't be long before Mr. Chiao's name becomes famous in the heavenly devil battlefield and shakes the world, Wei Clan's grand elder said. He had been carefully observing Du Xiaofu's expression. It was as if he was desperately hoping that he could guess something. Perhaps we'll have a chance to fight them. What long air, nether demon, fire cloud evil god. I'll definitely defeat them all. Du Xiaofu laughed. The scar at the corner of his eye trembled. His laughter was filled with heroism and confidence. "Let's go." As his laughter reverberated, Du Xiaofu's figure had already swept forward. Can he really defeat the dragons, Long Air, Fire Cloud Evil God, Dugu Finchen, and Dark Hell Emperor, Nether Demon? One of the Wei clan's youths asked. His eyes were filled with shock and some doubt. Although they had personally witnessed Mr. Qiao's strength and the experts from the school of vertical and horizontal couldn't even withstand a single blow, Long Air, Fire Cloud Evil God, Dugu Finchen, and the others were godlike existences in their eyes. They were the strongest supreme geniuses of the younger generation. Even the experts of the older generation would be defeated by them. Could this Mr. Qiao really defeat them, or was he just boasting? This Mr. Qiao is unfathomable. Even if he can't defeat them, he's still a supreme genius of the younger generation. The Wei clan's grandmaster whispered to the Wei clan's youths behind him. All of you must be respectful and never offend this Mr. Qiao. If you have the opportunity to receive a few pointers from him, then our Wei clan will definitely benefit greatly in the future. The group continued on their journey. Du Xiaofu inquired about some of the directions within the Heavenly Devil battlefield. He was currently only at the edge of the Heavenly Devil battlefield that was close to the outer region. The various major forces had already set out towards the depths. The treasures and benefits that would appear there would naturally be greater. Of course, the danger factor would also be higher. Du Xiaofu also set out towards the depths of the Heavenly Devil battlefield. He wanted to search for the people from the desolate country. His father, Du Tingxian, second brother, Du Yunlong, eldest sister, Du Xiaoman, and eldest brother, Jin Qingchun, the 18 celestial guards, Mo Tianxiao, and the Thunderhawk King should have already set out towards the depths of the Heavenly Devil battlefield. With their tempers and personalities, they would definitely not let go of the opportunity to compete with the supreme geniuses of the age. Du Xiaofu and the rest of the Wei clan had a rather peaceful journey. They only encountered 3 groups of demonic monsters that were of average strength. In the end, they were all slain by the group. If you encounter anyone else, you have to be a little more patient. In the Heavenly Devil battlefield, you still don't have the qualifications to compete for anything. Everything will depend on your luck. The Wei clan's grandmaster advised the Wei clan's youths. He had seen too many experts of the younger generation in the Heavenly Devil battlefield this time. Only then did he know that the Wei clan's youths, who could look down on their peers on Azure Cloud Island, were completely inadequate in the Heavenly Devil battlefield. Even a genius like Mu Jianxin of the Saman Sword sect would be overshadowed. We must become experts. However, a few of the Wei clan's youths were not discouraged. Instead, they rubbed their palms together and were excited. They wanted to find opportunities in the Heavenly Devil battlefield and become experts one day and shake the world. Hearing the words of the Wei clan's youths behind him, Du Xiaofu muttered to himself, "I'm looking forward to seeing if anyone below the Saint Realm can be swept away by me." Golden light gushed out of Du Xiaofu's eyes as they shone brightly. Taking advantage of the fact that the Saint Realm cultivators were still unable to enter the Heavenly Devil battlefield, Du Xiaofu wanted to make a clean sweep of the Heavenly Devil battlefield. He wanted to verify his current true strength and lay the foundation for stepping into the Saint Realm in the future. Chapter 1891. As they flew, the mountains rose and fell. Powerful monsters roared from time to time. Ferocious birds flew across the sky with powerful cultivators on them. Their auras swept past the Wei clan members, but they didn't sense Du Xiaofu's aura and left in disdain. With Du Xiaofu around, the Wei clansmen became bolder. They no longer hid themselves and tried to cover their tracks. Gradually, the number of people they encountered increased, but the number of demonic monsters decreased. In the end, they couldn't even see a trace of them. There seems to be a small town up ahead. Du Xiaofu stood in the air and looked around. There were buildings in front of them, but they couldn't be called a city. At most, they could be considered a small town. It's not strange. There are many small towns here, all of them left behind from ancient times. They're relatively intact. After the Heavenly Devil battlefield opened, these places became temporary strongholds for people to exchange information and trade spiritual medicines and treasures. It's said that there are also large ancient cities in the middle, but these places are all controlled by powerful forces, Wei Jiajia said to Du Xiaofu. Whoosh! Suddenly, the sound of wind breaking rang out in the sky. A huge shadow appeared, as if a huge dark cloud was covering the sky. It was a huge bird with a pair of frightening eyes. Its wingspan was over 100 feet, and it was obvious that it was not at its largest size. Cyan Light Demonic Eagle. Du Xiaofu looked up. This was a cyan light demonic eagle at the peak of the Beast Emperor realm. It was not a match among the monsters, but it was still ranked on the Heavenly Beast ranking. However, this cyan light demonic eagle key was somewhat lacking compared to the silver-winged demonic eagle and the Thunderhawk King bloodline. Therefore, Du Xiaofu only glanced at it indifferently. A cyan light demonic eagle of this level was really unattractive in Du Xiaofu's eyes. Wei Hantong, are you also going to participate in the mercenary selection? But didn't your Wei clan send a lot of people? Why are there only a few of you left? Don't tell me all of you were killed? It seems like the Wei clan is going to decline in the future. There was a group of several dozen people on the Cyan Light Demonic Eagle. The one leading the group was an old man whose appearance and aura were similar to the Wei family's old master Wei. He laughed loudly as he recognized the people from the Wei family. They were obviously acquaintances. Gu Laosan, your Gu family is nothing in the Heavenly Devil battlefield, right? Grandmaster Wei looked at the old man on the bird with an ugly expression. Although he didn't look like an enemy, there wasn't much of a smile on his face. After this trip, my Gu family will no longer be the Gu family of the past. The old man on the bird didn't seem to care about old Master Wei's words. He laughed heartily and left, riding the bird towards the small town ahead. He's from the Gu family, another family on Qingyan Island. We've embarrassed ourselves in front of Mr. Qiao, Wei Jia said to Du Xiaofu. Du Xiaofu didn't mind. It seemed that the Wei clan and the Gu family were competitors, just like the Du, Yi, and Bai families in Stone City. The Gu family must have obtained some treasure to be so arrogant. They don't know that Jia has also obtained a great treasure. When the time comes, they'll know that our Wei clan is the #1 family on Qingyan Island. Some of the people from the Wei clan gritted their teeth when they heard the old man from the Gu family. This time, the Wei clan had indeed lost many of their descendants, all of whom were blood relatives. Now that Gu Laosan mentioned it, they naturally felt uncomfortable. Du Xiaofu continued onwards, and the surrounding terrain gradually leveled out. He was getting closer and closer to the town, and there were many green plants in the surroundings, giving off a feeling of vitality. It was unlike most places in the Heavenly Demon battlefield, which made Du Xiaofu inwardly feel surprised. There are many places with greenery. It's said that there's a place called Heavenly Yu Mountain, one of the few mysterious places in the Heavenly Devil battlefield. It's rumored that there are towering trees everywhere, countless spiritual herbs, and spiritual birds and beasts. It's never been tainted by evil demons. Unfortunately, it's very mysterious. Not only can it not be found, it's also impossible for living beings to set foot there, Wei Jia said. These were just rumors in the Heavenly Devil battlefield, and she didn't know much about it. Du Xiaofu smiled. If such a place really existed, it was only a matter of time before people set foot there. Oh woo. As they approached the small town, many monsters appeared, then took human form. There were also cultivators coming from all directions, all of whom entered the small town one by one. The small town was modeled and ancient. Although it was well preserved and rather intact, it had been a long time. Many places had collapsed, leaving behind dilapidated fences and dilapidated walls. Everyone entered the town. Although it couldn't be compared to the big cities outside, compared to what Du Xiaofu had seen in the past 2 days, the small town was already very lively. Many cultivators had gathered. Du Xiaofu sized up the ancient streets and alleys, estimating that there were thousands of people. He scanned with his mind, but there weren't too many experts. However, there were quite a number of honorable realm experts. Basically, martial honorables and 8-star talisman masters had brought many young disciples with them. On both sides of the street, there were also cultivators setting up simple stalls. I accidentally obtained a Dharma weapon in exchange for a few royal-grade healing elixirs. Refining materials, gold and copper, can be used to refine high-grade Dharma weapons in exchange for honorable-grade martial skills. Similar cries of hawking could be heard incessantly, and the streets were clamorous with noise and clamor. Don't miss this chance. I accidentally obtained an ancient cave abode. It must have been left behind by an ancient expert. Suddenly, such a voice entered Du Xiaofu's ears. Du Xiaofu looked in the direction of the voice. Right beside him, a lean, burly man placed a tattered scroll in front of his stall. It looked really old, and he was loudly hawking. Seeing that Du Xiaofu was sizing it up, the lean, burly man became even more spirited. He kept promoting, "Friend, you have good taste. You must be someone who knows what's good for you. I accidentally obtained this. Let me tell you a secret. This must be a treasure map. It contains the location of an ancient expert's residence. If you're fated to find it, you'll definitely be able to reach the heavens in a single step. It's a pity that my cultivation isn't high enough, and I don't have the luck. Right now, I can exchange it for an honorable grade elixir and a high-grade Dharma weapon." Hearing this, the eyes of the Wei clan's disciples lit up, and they carefully sized up the ancient scroll. Hee. Du Xiaofu smiled faintly and ignored them. He turned around and left with a smile. That scroll could not escape Du Xiaofu's eyes. It was just an old fake, and not an ancient treasure map at all. "Friend, don't go. Do you think it's too expensive? I see that you're fated. How about a Dharma weapon? What do you think? Don't go. How about a Dao weapon? I can't go any lower. Hey, a royal grade elixir. A candidate grade elixir. I'll give you a treasure map. How about that?" Du Xiaofu ignored them and left. The young people of the Wei clan were still reluctant to leave, and they looked tempted. Chapter 1892. Blockhead, that's a fake. Old Master Wei was in a bad mood when he heard the disciples of the Wei family reprimand them. He wanted nothing more than to kick them a few times. "Great-grandfather, there are people from the Gu family up ahead." One of the Wei family youths spoke up. He saw the Gu family disciple who had just entered the town before them. Thousands of people had gathered in a small square in front of them. The square, which wasn't very big, was packed and bustling. Not only that, but there were also powerful auras. Clearly, there were also the auras of many ferocious beasts. Du Xiaofu had also sensed it long ago. He stopped and looked around. Many cultivators had gathered. The noise was loud, and their auras were surging. Peak Nirvana, revered martial artist. As Du Xiaofu probed with his mind, he narrowed his eyes. He could sense a vague aura sweeping the surroundings from the center of the crowd. It was actually a peak Nirvana martial saint. Such a cultivation was already the strongest in this small town. Those who want to go must be at least martial emperor realm. Talisman masters have priority. The requirements can be relaxed. When the time comes, the treasures we obtain will be distributed equally according to cultivation and contribution. A loud and clear voice came from the center of the crowd. It was mixed with profound energy and was extremely penetrating. "This is a mercenary selection. They're recruiting." Wei Jiajia said to Du Xiaofu, "Some people don't have enough strength to search for treasures, so they choose to form teams. It's like a mercenary group. If someone can pay the price, they won't refuse to serve others." Searching for treasures, Du Xiaofu smiled faintly. He was afraid that when the time came, the treasures would be taken by those with stronger cultivation. The purpose of these people's recruitment was probably to find cannon fodder. "Out of the way, don't block the way." Right at this moment, someone shouted. More than 10 people rushed over in an extremely rude and unreasonable manner. "What are you blocking the way for?" A burly man in short sleeves with a strong body and bulging muscles swept away family youth aside. He staggered to the ground with one hand. "Are you bullying us?" The young man from the Wei clan was enraged. He stood up from the ground and began to berate loudly. The faces of the surrounding Wei clan members also darkened, and some of the younger ones looked furious. "Forget it. All of you are dismissed." Grandpa Wei pulled these youths back. Looking at the dozen or so people and sensing their auras, he couldn't reason with them. He told the youths of Wei family not to be impulsive and that they could only swallow this loss. After all, this was not Qingyan Island. The youths were indignant, but they also understood Old Master Wei's meaning. They could only suppress their anger and withdraw. After a rough assessment, they could already sense that these dozen or so people were not to be trifled with. "So what if we bullied you? You don't know what's good for you." So what if we kill you? However, even though old Master Wei had reprimanded the Wei family disciple, the muscular man in short sleeves had no intention of stopping. Instead, his interest was piqued. He stopped in his tracks and sneered again and again. Killing intent flashed through his eyes, and he didn't care about the Wei family disciple at all. Profound energy surged out of his hand as he swatted at the youth, intending to kill him on the spot. This burly man's cultivation was very strong. He was an early-stage martial venerable. If this Wei family disciple was hit by his casual attack, he would definitely be killed. Sir, you are going too far. The other party bullied them first, and now he wanted to kill them. Old Master Wei couldn't bear it anymore. With a flick of his sleeve, his figure flashed in front of the youth in an instant. He swatted out with one hand, and the two forces collided directly. Bang! A muffled sound rang out, and a strong gust of wind caused rune ripples to disperse. The mottled stone tiles on the ground cracked. The commotion was not small, and it attracted the attention of the surrounding people. Thump thump. Both Old Master Wei and the burly man were forced back several steps at the same time. It was a draw. It's the Wei family. They are in trouble. The group of Gu family disciples who had gathered outside also saw the Wei family disciples. They were surprised and then went to the side to watch the show. Old Master Wei had not recovered from some of his injuries and was not at his peak. The burly man had also casually attacked and didn't use his full strength. If both of them died at their peak, they would be evenly matched. Oh, there is still a martial venerable here. The burly man stamped his foot and stopped his retreat. He looked at Old Master Wei in surprise, but then he sneered and said, "It seems that you are still injured. You dare to interfere with the people I want to kill? Old thing, you can go die yourself." Boom. As his voice fell, the burly man's aura trembled violently. A terrifying aura soared into the sky, and he was about to attack again. Old 14, forget it. Come back. At this moment, a low voice came from the center of the crowd. As this voice came out, the packed crowd automatically parted to reveal a small square in the center. There were no less than 300 or 400 people standing in the center of the small square. At the front were a dozen or so men and women of different appearances, but they didn't look too young. In the center was an old man who looked to be in his 50s. His shoulder-length hair was eye-catching, half black and half silver. His eyes were calm, as if there were no waves. It was obviously him who had spoken just now. Humph. Hearing that voice, the burly man snorted coldly at Old Master Wei. He withdrew his aura and said, "Consider yourself lucky today. If I see you again, I will not forgive you." With that, the burly man led the people behind him directly to the square. A sneak attack. Isn't that a little underhanded? But at this moment, Du Xiaofu suddenly spoke. With a wave of his hand, an invisible wave swept out toward the Wei clan. Crackle, crackle. In an instant, a dozen energy arrows appeared above the Wei clan's heads. Runes shone brightly and surged with killing intent. Then, they were annihilated and dissipated in the distorted space. That was close. Only then did the Wei clan's people, including Old Master Wei, realize that there was a fatal killing intent just now. If Mr. Qiao hadn't acted, they probably wouldn't even know how they died. If you want a sneak attack, then you will have to pay the price. A calm voice came from Du Xiaofu's mouth. At the same time, the hand he had just waved fell forward. An invisible wave immediately spread out in the air. Bang, 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 bang. The speed was too fast. In just an instant, the burly man and the dozen or so others had no idea what was happening. Lightning flashed within their bodies, and then their bodies exploded. Their spirits were destroyed. In the end, they died without even knowing what had happened. Something interesting is about to happen. That man killed 14 of the Lushan 14 owls. He's in big trouble now. The crowd was in an uproar. There was a surge of qi, and the people who were clustered around immediately retreated. In the center of the square, the expressions of the dozen or so people at the front changed drastically. Waves of extremely extraordinary auras soared into the sky, shaking the void. "Brat, you're courting death." A cold glint appeared in the eyes of the 50-year-old man in the middle. A cold light shot out from his eyes. This old man in his 50s was the leader of the Lushan 14 Owls. He was the one who secretly attacked just now. He wanted to establish his authority here so that the people around him would respect him in the future. However, that old man had never expected that he would be stopped by someone and that his 14th brother would be killed. Chapter 1893. Mr. Qiao. The disciples of the Wei family immediately gathered around Du Xiaofu, their hearts still palpitating and their foreheads covered in cold sweat. They had almost been killed just now. Thinking about it now, they still felt their hair stand on end. The other party was too strong, so strong that they could take their lives without a sound. Thank you, Mr. Qiao, for saving us again. Old Master Wei was very grateful, but looking at the old man and the dozen people with terrifying auras, his gaze was also very serious. He transmitted his voice into Du Xiaofu's ear. These are the Lushan 14 Owls, 14 sworn brothers. They are infamous in Wanzhou because they are treacherous, cunning, and very strong. Even the big forces are not willing to provoke them easily. The Lushan 14 Owls, huh? Since you've already paid the price, get lost, Du Xiaofu said. The strength of these people was not bad. They were all in the martial honorable realm. The strongest one was already at the peak of the Nirvana martial honorable realm. He was only one step away from the domain realm. Indeed, he was definitely an overlord in the continent. However, Du Xiaofu did not take it to heart. He was just too lazy to make a move. It was fine as long as these people did not provoke him. Kid, are you talking to us? Beside the leading old man, a tall middle-aged man stared straight at Du Xiaofu. His eyes were cold and murderous, and the corners of his eyes were twitching. What, you want to fight? You can come and try, Du Xiaofu said calmly, looking straight at the middle-aged man. He did not have a good impression of these people. If they still wanted to provoke him, he did not mind killing them. Kid, you're really tired of living. The tall middle-aged man finally could not take it anymore. A terrifying cold aura exploded from his body, wanting to freeze the surrounding space. Some of the cultivators around who were not strong enough instantly had frost appear in their eyes, so cold that their souls trembled. Chila, the middle-aged man attacked. He stomped his foot on the ground, and an extremely cold aura rushed out. As he rushed out, runes gathered in his hand, turning into a large ice blade that was about to distort the void. In an instant, it slashed towards Du Xiaofu. It was fierce and vicious, merciless and malicious. Ka, under such an attack, wherever the ice saber passed, the ground of the square would be frozen until it cracked and turned into ice shards. An icy chi that made one's primordial spirit tremble permeated the void. This person was a peak primordial chaos martial venerable and was not far from becoming a nirvana martial venerable. Not many people present could compare to him. They were all trembling from the cold. Bing Xiao, the third brother of the Lushan 14 Owls, cultivates a terrifying frost Xian Qi that can freeze Xian Qi and primordial spirit. Someone exclaimed and sucked in a breath of cold air for Du Xiaofu. They knew how powerful Bing Xiao was. He was an absolute killer whose name shook Wanzhou. Chila. The blade slashed down, cutting through the void. Ice runes filled the air. Under everyone's gaze, Du Xiaofu was directly cut into pieces by the energy ice saber. His body turned into ice shards, but then he disappeared into the void without any blood mist. It's an afterimage. Someone with good eyesight exclaimed in surprise. He could tell that the figure that was cut into pieces was just an afterimage. At that moment, Bing Zhao's expression suddenly changed. He seemed to have felt something and wanted to turn back. However, it was too late. Du Xiaofu's figure appeared behind him. Kacha. The void distorted. Du Xiaofu stretched out his hand and curled his palm into a claw. He grabbed Bing Zhao's neck in disbelief. With a crisp crack, blood spurted out. Bing Zhao's head and neck had been separated. His eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. His pupils constricted. Then, his body and head turned into a blood mist at the same time. The speed was too fast. Before anyone could react, Bing Xiao, who was a peak primordial chaos martial venerable, had been killed. The whole square was silent. Rows of mouths were agape in shock. A peak primordial chaos martial venerable was killed in an instant. The remaining members of the Lushan 14 Owls looked at each other in dismay. Then, they were shocked. The cold eyes of the leader, who was in his 50s, suddenly twitched. At that moment, the Lushan 14 Owls realized that they had offended someone they should not have. This time, they had kicked a steel plate. "Oh no! Run!" The leader, who was in his 50s, shouted. In an instant, he came back to his senses. The seemingly young man in front of them was someone they could not afford to offend. To be able to kill Bing Xiao in an instant, he was at least in the domain realm. Even if all of them worked together, they would not be a match for him. Judging from his ferocious way of killing, he was definitely not someone to be trifled with. Now that they had offended him, they would definitely not have a good ending. Swoosh, swoosh, dozens of figures flew out. Their faces were filled with shock as they wanted to leave. They did not dare to stay any longer. In the face of absolute strength, they could only escape. "Since you have offended me, you can all go to hell." Du Xiaofu's eyes were filled with coldness. Suddenly, a purple flame flashed across his eyes. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Suddenly, the dozens of figures who had just leaped into the air stopped in the void. Their eyes were filled with shock as their bodies cracked. Their bodies cracked, and purple light overflowed from their bodies, emitting a dazzling light. Bang, 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 bang. Dozens of muffled sounds exploded in the void. The bodies of the Lushan 14 Owls exploded. Billowing purple flames gushed out from their bodies, burning the void. The purple runes were annihilated in the void like purple fireworks. However, they had taken the lives of the Lushan 14 Owls. Not even their bones were left. The Lushan 14 Owls, who were famous in Wanzhou, dozens of martial honorables, and a vicious person who was only a step away from the domain realm, were all killed in a clean manner. The way they were killed sent chills down the spines of the living beings around them. Gulp, gulp. After being stunned for a moment, the sound of people swallowing their saliva could be heard. In the square, the 300 to 400 figures were surging with auras like humans. They originally wanted to stand together with the Lushan 14 Owls, but at that moment, they were all trembling with fear. They were afraid that they would follow in the footsteps of the Lushan 14 Owls. "Who is he? He doesn't seem very old. Is he a genius?" Someone asked in a low voice. They were sizing up Du Xiaofu from afar, trying to guess his identity. Only those supreme geniuses could have such strength and cultivation at such a young age. Everyone from House Wei was equally shocked and agitated. Mr. Qiao's strength had once again exceeded their expectations. He was an out-and-out heaven's chosen. It was no wonder that he was so bold as to challenge all the supremes of heavens chosen in the heavenly devil battlefield. He had the capital to back up his confidence, and was also a ruthless killer. He was not to be trifled with. Wei Jiajia's red lips were also agape in shock. She had never thought that the person she had casually helped would be such a powerful person, such a genius. Roar. Suddenly, a dragon's roar rang out like thunder. The sound caused the small town to tremble, breaking the dead silence in the town square. Chapter 1894. Dozens of figures appeared in the sky outside the small town. The most eye-catching one was a 1,000-meter-long white flood dragon in the middle. It gave off a chilling aura as it flew through the air, half of its body hidden in the clouds. It was a shocking sight. On the head of the white flood dragon was a handsome middle-aged man in his 40s. He wore a loose robe and had shoulder-length black hair. A strange rune flickered on his forehead. His eyes were bright, proud, and profound. "That's a frost flood dragon, a branch of the dragons. It can't be used as a mount. Could it be that the dragons are here?" Those figures came with the huge flood dragon. Their auras were powerful, and their eyes shone with ferocious light. Most of them were beast men, and they exuded a powerful pressure. The handsome middle-aged man standing on the head of the flood dragon made the hearts of those who looked at him tremble. "It's the dragons." Someone confirmed that it was the dragon race that came, trembling in fear. That was a legendary powerful race. What are the dragons doing here in this small town? Many people were surprised. What could catch the eyes of the dragons in a small town like this? Those big factions and races had long since gone to fight for great opportunities and treasures. 2 Initial Ascension, 1 Sealed Domain. Du Xiaofu raised his head slightly and narrowed his eyes. Most of those people were beastmen, and there were 2 Initial Ascension Beast Realm cultivators. The middle-aged man on the Frost Flood Dragon was a Sealed Domain Realm cultivator. He was not weak, and the remaining dozens were not ordinary either. Compared to such a group of experts, the Lushan 14 Owls was nothing. The dozens of figures shone brightly, like stars floating in the sky. Their auras suppressed the void. The people of the small town were terrified. None of them could afford to offend such experts. The dozens of people hovered in the void, sensing the bloody killing intent that had filled the small square. They only glanced at it indifferently, not paying it any attention. Everyone, listen up. As long as someone finds out about the people from the desolate nation and reports it to the dragons, they will be able to choose any ancient cultivation technique, domain-level martial technique, or high-grade celestial weapon. A young woman in a red robe with a lithe figure walked forward and stood in the air. Her slender legs were half exposed, and her chest was slightly white. She was beautiful and alluring, but she also carried a kind of coldness. Her clear voice reverberated in every corner of the town. Whoever can provide information about the Demon King Du Xiaofu will be able to obtain a sacred artifact and an ancient inheritance from the dragons. If you're looking for me, you can't beat my price. Du Xiaofu raised his eyebrows. He did not expect that the first person he met in the heavenly devil battlefield would be someone who issued a bounty for him. The price was not low at all. It seemed like the dragons were really concerned about him. A trace of coldness flashed in his eyes. Du Xiaofu did not plan to be polite to the dragons. The dragons are issuing bounties everywhere. They want to deal with the desolate nation. Many of the dragons were killed by the desolate nation. Dragon 9, Dragon 8, and the others died in the hands of the Demon King Du Xiaofu. In the Divine Domain, Dragon 3 and the others also died in the hands of the Demon King Du Xiaofu. This kind of enmity cannot be resolved. It is said that the dragon's terrifying Dragon 2 has already entered and is looking for the Demon King Du Xiaofu everywhere. Everyone was secretly discussing and whispering. It turned out that the experts from the dragons were here to look for the people from the desolate nation. The beautiful young woman stood in the void, emitting a dazzling light. There was a mysterious and powerful aura circulating around her. It was the aura of the dragons. It was extraordinary and intimidating. The beautiful young woman's expression was calm. Her eyes flashed brilliantly, and there was an invisible power that gradually rose. It made people's souls tremble and their hearts palpitate, making them want to kneel down. But if anyone has information about the people from the desolate nation and does not tell us, then you will have to bear the consequences. As soon as she finished speaking, the beautiful young woman's gaze swept across the small town. The invisible power made the people below tremble. Some of the beasts immediately prostrated themselves and reverted to their original forms. This kind of power was too shocking. It made the small town silent. Everyone lowered their heads and did not dare to raise them. The dragon race sure is awe-inspiring. Suddenly, a voice reverberated in the empty space of the small town, causing the faces of the dozens of experts from the dragon tribe to change. On top of the Frost Jiao dragon's head, the handsome middle-aged man's eyes shot out a divine light. When the voice reached Du Xiaofu's ears, it also made Du Xiaofu look in the direction of the voice. The voice was very familiar to Du Xiaofu. It was too familiar. As Du Xiaofu looked in the direction of the voice, a familiar figure appeared in the void. It was a middle-aged man. His wretched face and eyes did not change much, but it did not make people feel uncomfortable. Instead, it had a natural charm. It's Brother Qing Chun. Joy flashed in Du Xiaofu's eyes as he smiled. The figure in front of him was none other than his elder brother, the child of the sacred array, Zhan Qingchun. Sacred array child Zhan Qingchun? On top of the Frost Jiao dragon, the handsome middle-aged man's robe swayed as his voice slowly sounded. It's the desolate nation's sacred array child Zhan Qingchun. He's a big shot in the desolate nation. It's rumored that the sacred array child Zhan Qingchun is the elder brother of the Demon King Du Xiaofu. The people in the small town, who were originally trembling, were now in an uproar. Everyone knew that there would be a big show to watch. The desolate nation's sacred array Child Jinqingchun had come. A big battle was inevitable. It's the desolate nation's sacred array Child Jinqingchun. It's rumored that his attainments in the art of formations are terrifying. The six-wheel blood-killing array can kill everything, Wei Jiajia said. She looked at the figure in the void. Her eyes flickered with yearning. She cultivated both martial arts and talisman arts. As a talisman master, she had heard of the legend of the sacred array Child Jinqingchun. In the void, Jinqingchun suddenly lowered his gaze and looked at Wei Jiajia. There was a flash of surprise in his eyes. Long Fun, you mixed blood dragons really don't want to give up. Jinqingchun raised his eyebrows. Then, he looked at the middle-aged man in the loose robes on the back of the ice dragon. His inverted triangular eyes were still as wretched as ever. Since you dared to come, don't leave. If you die, the desolate nation will be very lively, Longfun said. His eyes were cold. As his voice fell, his expression suddenly turned cold. His arms shook and a gushing aura burst out from his body. Roar! A terrifying aura spread out. There was a faint shadow of a crimson fire dragon lingering around his body. The surrounding living creatures held their breaths. They were shocked to find that the profound chi in their bodies was blocked by that terrifying aura. Their primordial spirits also seemed to be on fire. That's a true descendant of the dragons. He's a beast region expert. Someone exclaimed. A martial region expert of the dragons was terrifying. Chapter 1895. Awuh! When Long Fun unleashed his aura, the dozens of dragons around him released their terrifying auras at the same time. Some of them roared like thunder, and two of them had the most powerful auras. Jinqingchun only smiled faintly when he sensed the dozens of terrifying auras. He glanced at Long Fawn and the others with his inverted triangular eyes and said, "With just you guys? I'm afraid it's not enough. You're too weak. Listen to my orders. Kill Jinqingchun with all your might. Don't let him set up the formation." Long Fan raised his gaze as his cold voice reverberated throughout the small town. It carried a terrifying killing intent like a dragon's roar. Jinqingchun was a master of formations. Once he set up a talisman formation, it would be difficult to deal with him. Boom! As Long Fawn's voice rang out, the entire space of the small town instantly tensed up and froze. The auras of the dozens of figures rose into the sky. Awoo! In an instant, huge flood dragons and all kinds of ferocious beasts occupied the space. Winds rose and clouds surged. The earth trembled and roared like thunder. Waves of terrifying might and light soared into the sky. You have more people, but it's useless. Unfortunately, it won't be my turn to make a move. What a pity. Looking at those terrifying figures, Zhang Qingchuan's face carried a smile that was not a smile. There was also a look of regret on his face. He did not have any intention of taking action. There's no need for Brother Qingchun to make a move with these small fries. A voice suddenly came from afar and echoed in the void. When the last word fell, 18 invisible sharp auras spread out and froze this part of the world. Whoosh whoosh. The sound of wind breaking resounded. A large group of rainbow figures broke through the air and appeared above the void like lightning. Boom! Boom! The space trembled invisibly. A total of 18 rays of light retracted as 18 men descended. 18 invisible energy fluctuations were like 18 javelins on the ground, giving off a sharp feeling. All 18 men gave off the feeling of a ferocious beast. The sharp aura that filled their bodies for no reason was accompanied by a bloody stench. It was impossible for such an aura to exist without experiencing bloody slaughter. It was enough to prove that these 18 men had been tempered by killing along the way. All eyes fell on the 18 young men, and their hair stood on end. 18 heavenly generals. On top of the enormous ice dragon head, when he saw the 18 tall and straight figures and felt the 18 terrifying auras, Long Foreign's gaze fiercely trembled. Heavens! It's the desolate country's 18 heavenly guards. In the plaza below, Wei Jiajia's delicate face trembled. She had never seen those 18 men before, but she had heard countless legends about them. They were the strongest weapons of the world meeting and their murderous reputation had long since shaken the 3 continents and Kyushu. None of you are idle. Du Xiaofu stood there indifferently. He raised his head and looked at the 18 men who had descended. A smile appeared on his face. After not seeing them for so long, the auras of these 18 fellows had become much stronger. 18 men were flying in the air. In the middle was a tall and slender man in a black robe. Under his bangs, his eyes were sharp. He was Yi Piaoling, the leader of the World Society's 18 heavenly guards. Kill. Yi Piaoling spoke. Her sharp eyes were filled with undisguised killing intent. She was cold and merciless. Kill. Beside Yi Piaoling, a beast-like man in a long robe summoned a battle spear and held it in his hand. A terrifying aura burst out from it. It was the savage battle spear, and it directly slashed towards the dragon race man. Kill. Leave no one alive. One figure after another charged forward like lightning. Their killing intent was swift and fierce. Waves of aura shook the void. It was as if 18 bolts of lightning had swept into the dragon's formation and started a massacre. Not good. It's the 18 heavenly generals. Retreat. Longfen shouted. The 18 heavenly generals' fierce reputation had long been known. They were 18 killing gods, each stronger than the last. At this moment, even as one of the dragon's elders, he was trembling in fear. However, it was too late for Longfen to retreat. The 18 heavenly generals were so fierce that they had already charged forward. Awoo! In an instant, some beasts were killed, and some dragons were directly shattered. Bastards, I'm not done with you. Longfen was furious. His aura surged out, and flames seeped out of the void. In his hand, something was quietly crushed without leaving a trace. A cold sneer flashed across his eyes. Awoo! The ice dragon under Longfen's feet roared, shaking the void until it trembled. The cold air froze the void. Die. Yi Piaoling's figure appeared. Faint black profound qi filled the air with runes, resisting the corrosion of the cold air. Her sword soared through the sky, piercing through the void, and directly slashed at the enormous ice dragon. Yi Piaoling, let me see if you're really as powerful as the rumors say. Longfen shouted. His entire body was covered in flames, and a dragon's might spread out to protect his body. With a wave of his hand, he condensed a blazing fire dragon and blocked the sword light with a roar. However, the fire dragon only blocked it for an instant before it was shattered and annihilated by the sword light. The sword light pierced through the air and directly slashed at the ice dragon's head. A monstrous blood mist poured out. The huge dragon's head was shattered, and its beast soul was also shattered. Bastard! Longfen's figure flew away from the top of his mount's head. His eyes glowed, and his killing intent surged. He watched as his mount was killed, but he didn't stop it. One could imagine how he felt. He no longer held back his sealed domain realm aura, and his dragon's might surged. Go all out. Yi Piaoling stepped into the air, holding the sword in her right hand and standing with her left hand behind her back. She was calm and fierce, and the invisible bloody aura spread out from her body. She was iron-blooded and cold, like a god of death. Awoo! In an instant, a terrifying dragon's might spread out, and a dragon's roar filled the sky. Longfen turned into a huge fire dragon and swooped down from the void. His aura was monstrous, and he unleashed his strongest dragon's might to attack Yi Piaoling. Too strong. The creatures in the town were shocked. Such a powerful dragon was too terrifying. As expected of one of the supreme beast clans, Yi Piaoling didn't move, but faint black profound qi surged around her. The sword in her hand let out a sonorous sound of wind and thunder. A new aura spread out from her body, and a terrifying pressure filled the air. The fire dragon swooped down, and the huge dragon's eyes suddenly shrank. Longfen felt the aura on Yi Piaoling's body and revealed a shocked expression under the pressure. Oh no, he's reached the peak of the Nirvana realm. Longfen couldn't believe it. At this moment, he felt the aura of the peak of the Nirvana realm from Yi Piaoling's body. Yi Piaoling was probably not far from the Nirvana realm. Longfen was at the peak of the sealed domain realm. As an elder of the dragons and a descendant of the true dragon, he felt the aura of the Nirvana realm. He He didn't care about cultivators at the greater domain realm. However, Yi Piaoling was a supreme Nirvana realm cultivator at the peak of the Nirvana realm. She was infamous. Go all out. The arrow was already knocked on the bow, and it had to be released. Longfin shouted, and the fire dragon burned. Runes soared into the sky, and the dragon's claws tore through the void and shook the world. At this point, Longfin felt fear. He wanted to go all out and stall for time, while waiting for strong reinforcements. When the time came, he would be able to capture the 18 Heavenly Generals' guards and Zhen Qingchun in one fell swoop. This would be a huge blow to the desolate country. Kill. Yi Piaoling attacked. The huge fire dragon swooped down. The figure seemed very small, but there was a light that shot into the sky like the sun. He swung the sword in his hand, and a sword light pierced through the void. The sword light was shocking and fierce. Ah! The dragon and the man fought. After one round, Longfin roared and screamed. One of his dragon claws was cut off, and dragon blood flowed. He was seriously injured. The fire dragon soared into the sky and erupted with dragon power. Longfin quickly retreated. Yi Piaoling was stronger than he had imagined. You can't escape. Yi Piaoling's thin lips parted slightly. His figure strangely appeared above Longfin's head. The faint black Xian Qi in his body covered the world, and a strong pressure confined the void. He waved his hand, and the sword swooped down and pierced through Longfin's head. Qi-la! The sword sank between Longfin's eyebrows. The surrounding runes exploded in blazing flames, and the surrounding void cracked. You can't escape either. Don't even think about escaping. Longfin's ferocious head had a look of despair. The sword destroyed his dragon soul. His dragon pupils shrank, and he couldn't close his eyes. He died. Rumble. At the same time, the other two Beast Region cultivators were also killed by Qingguyu, Silver Fox, and the others. There was no suspense in this battle. No matter how the dozens of dragons roared and fought with their lives, or how they used their monstrous beast energy, they couldn't resist the slaughter of the 18 celestial generals. None of the dozens of dragons escaped. They were all killed, and their souls were destroyed. Kill them all. A man in a blue and white robe landed beside Yi Piaoling. He was tall and sturdy, like the incarnation of a ferocious beast. He was Qingguyu. Just now, the savage spear had directly pierced through the body of a Beast Region cultivator. He was even more ferocious than a ferocious beast. Whoosh whoosh. A group of young men landed beside Qingguyu. Waves of fierce and bloody aura surged out. Their eyes were sharp and fierce. They killed dozens of dragons without even blinking. Looking up at the 18 men, there seemed to be some kind of magic that made the blood in the bodies of the surrounding creatures tremble for no reason. Is this the power of the 18 celestial generals? They're too strong. As expected of the desolate country's weapon, you can see how strong the desolate country is just by looking at the 18 celestial generals. No wonder the desolate country dares to face the dragons. School of vertical and horizontal and legalism. Geniuses gather and supreme beings are everywhere. The 18 tall and fierce figures and their fierce auras shook the hearts of the people. Everyone's eyes were filled with shock as they looked at the 18 men. Is there anyone else coming? However, at this moment, Du Xiaofu's eyes narrowed slightly as he stared at the void before him. What a waste. What a waste. At least leave some beast souls for me. Zhen Qingchun looked at the bloody corpses around him and felt his heart ache. If the dragon's beast souls were refined by the 6 wheels blood kill array, they could strengthen the 6 wheels blood kill array. Soon after, Zhen Qingchun landed on the ground. He walked in front of Du Xiaofu in front of quite a number of astonished gazes from all around. His gaze swept over Du Xiaofu, after which, he sized up Wei Jiejia and said, "Little girl, are you a symbol master?" Chapter 1896. Wei Jiejia was already nervous enough when the legendary sacred array child Zhen Qingchun suddenly appeared beside her. Now that she was asked a question, she became even more excited. But after that, Wei Jiejia calmed his feelings and bowed before he said, "Senior, I mainly cultivate formations in the Tao of talismans and minor in alchemy. Set up your strongest formation for me to see, said Jin Qingchun. Wei Jiejie was stunned. The surrounding disciples of the Wei clan, including Old Master Wei, were also puzzled. But in front of such a legendary figure, they didn't even dare to breathe loudly. Then I'll embarrass myself. Please advise me, senior. Wei Jiejie's hand seals were already forming. As a talisman master, it was a rare opportunity to face such a great formation master. Profound chi surged, and the power of the origin spirit surged. As Wei Jiejie's hand seals formed, the surrounding space suddenly surged and trembled slightly. Boom! In an instant, formation flags formed in Wei Jiejie's slender hands. Runes flickered, and light soared into the sky, shaking heaven and earth. Wei Jiejie's face suddenly turned pale. She was doing her best, gritting her teeth as she tried to form a 7-star Permethal-level formation. Dazzling formation flags rushed into the sky, about to form a formation amidst the wind and clouds. Not bad at all. Looking at the formation flags, a smile appeared on Zhang Qingchuan's face. With a wave of his hand, runes shot into the sky and landed on the formation flags. They directly dissolved the formation flags, and they scattered in the sky like fireworks. With the formation flags dissolved, Wei Jiejie's pale face regained some color, but there was deep shock on her delicate face. The sacred array child dissolved her formation flags with just a wave of his hand. This level of attainment was not something she could compare to. Little girl, what's your name? Looking at Wei Jiejie, Zhang Qingchun carefully sized her up as if he had seen a treasure. Junior is Wei Jiejie, from Shang Province's Qingyan Island, replied Wei Jiejie. Are you willing to become my disciple and cultivate with me? Asked Jin Qingchun. Wei Jiejie's origin spirit was exceptionally powerful, and she was also talented in formations. He wanted to take her in as his disciple. But when they heard Zhang Qingchuan's words, the disciples of the Wei clan, Old Master Wei, and the others all trembled. They were so shocked that they couldn't recover. The sacred array child Jin Qingchun, Desolate Country's Demon King, Du Xiaofu's elder brother. The Desolate Country's Demon King, Kyushu, and the Wei Country, the Demon King of the Desolate, Kyushu clan. Jiejie greets master. With trembling eyes, Wei Jiejie knelt down and respectfully kowtowed to Zhang Qingchun 3 times. How could she not be willing to accept such an array formation as a disciple? This was something that she could only wish for. The heavens bless our Wei clan. Old Master Wei cried. This was the Wei clan's great fortune. From now on, the Wei clan might not reach the heavens in a single bound, but their status would rise with the tide. Even the Saming Sword Sect, Pahuan School, Sun Moon Sect, Supporting Star Sect, and other first-rate forces in Shang Province all had close ties with the Desolate Country. Given Zhang Qingchuan's status in the Desolate Nation and the fact that Wei Jiejie was his disciple, the Wei clan would have a powerful backer in the entire Shang Prefecture. How did the Wei clan produce Wei Jiejie? Our Gu clan also has an extraordinary talisman master. However, compared to the people from the Gu clan not far away, Third Elder Gu's face twitched when he saw that Wei Jiejie from the Wei clan had become the disciple of the child of the sacred array, Zhang Qingchun. He hated that a member of the Gu clan had become the disciple of the child of the sacred array. Good. Jin Qingchun laughed and called out 3 times. He immediately helped Wei Jiejie up with a smile. Congratulations, Brother Qingchun. Yi Piaoling, Qian Guyu, and the others went up to congratulate him. The invisible smell of blood made Wei Jiejie's delicate body tremble. The true experts of the Dragon Clan should be coming soon. Zhang Qingchuan's expression became more serious as he looked toward the end of the void. The dragons have a true expert coming. Hearing this, Yi Piaoling, Qian Guyu, and Silver Fox's eyes rippled. They're already here, Jin Qingchun said. Boom. At that moment, the void in front of them trembled for no reason as if it had exploded. A hazy figure descended, bringing with it rolling clouds. A vast pressure descended at the same time, making people want to kneel down and kowtow. The beast souls of the beasts trembled for no reason and prostrated. The hazy figure appeared, becoming more and more dazzling. The light was as dazzling as the sun. A majestic old man appeared in the light. A terrifying pressure spread out like a peerless dragon, bringing with it an unparalleled dragon's might. Roar! In the depths of the void, a dragon's roar resounded. The terrifying pressure was released, making Zhen Qingchun, Qian Guyu, and the others tremble. This old man was too powerful. His body was wrapped in clouds and surrounded by runes. His aura was monstrous, as if a true dragon had been born. It made people's souls tremble. The old man's deep eyes were terrifying. It was as if two giant dragons were rising, about to soar for thousands of miles. This pair of eyes seemed to be able to make one's soul fly out of their body and scatter with a single glance. Roar! As the old man appeared, the void froze. The wind and clouds surged, and a dragon's roar resounded. The aura of a true dragon filled the air. The faint shadow of a dragon hovered in the void. Dazzling runes descended like a rain of light. It was like a miracle. Dragon soaring dragon. When they saw the majestic old man and felt the terrifying dragon's might, Qian Guyu, Silver Fox, Stone, Qi Guiyu, and the others' expressions changed. This was a truly terrifying expert. They had seen him before. He was the ancestor of the dragons. The ancestor of the dragons. Soaring dragon. On the square, Du Xiaofu narrowed his eyes and raised his head slightly. His gaze fell on the old figure of the dragons that had suddenly appeared. How could Du Xiaofu be unfamiliar with that majestic old man? Dragon soaring dragon. Back in the divine domain, Li Chunfa, Gongsun Hua, and the others had used their Yuan spirit avatars to kill him. In the end, one of their Yuan spirit avatars was killed by him. Then, along with Li Chunfa and the others, they wanted to kill him. In the end, Old Lei and the others appeared. How dare you kill the disciples of the dragons? Today, this ancestor will turn you into ashes. Dragon. As soaring dragon appeared, his gaze swept across the corpses around him. He glared at Zhen Qingchun, Yi Piaoling, and the others. The dragon's shadow around him fluctuated, and the dragon's aura was terrifying. Set up the formation, Yi Piaoling shouted. Facing an expert like Soaring Dragon, they could only use their full strength. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to resist. Long Fawn and this Soaring Dragon were not on the same level. There's no need for you to do anything. Someone will deal with this old man. Let's just watch the show. Zhen Qingchun stopped Yi Piaoling and the others. Facing Soaring Dragon, he didn't look serious at all. Instead, he was smiling. Hearing this, Yi Piaoling, Qian Guyu, and the others were surprised and puzzled. They quickly looked around. Zhen Qingchuan's words naturally could not escape Long Tongue's ears. He also secretly moved his eyes, sweeping the surroundings below with the corners of his eyes. No one can save you today. I will turn you into ashes. Sensing no powerful aura, Soaring Dragon instantly became furious. Killing intent filled the air, causing the void to tremble. Aren't you going to show yourself? I'm afraid we can't kill this old man. You'll have to do it yourself, Zhen Qingchun said. His expression was calm, as if he was confident. Old man, when I destroyed your avatar, I told you to wash your neck clean. I'll definitely chop off your head and kick it like a ball. Today is the time. Just as Zhen Qingchun finished speaking, a voice rumbled and resounded through the void. Swish, swish. Everyone's eyes fell on Du Xiaofu. They could clearly feel that the person who spoke was the scarred man. He was the one who didn't take a super expert like Soaring Dragon seriously, even when facing Soaring Dragon. Mr. Qiao, the people of House Wei were even more shocked. For a moment, they were confused and didn't know what was going on. Only Zhen Qingchun, who was not far away, smiled. He knew what was going on. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Du Xiaofu stepped out and ascended into the air step by step. His body was wriggling, and the sound of bones cracking could be heard. Golden light overflowed from his back, and then it became dazzling. A pair of golden wings spread out, and his entire body exuded an indescribable pressure. His eyes were like lightning as he ascended into the void. Golden light burst out from his golden wings, and the golden talisman patterns made the void lose its color. In an instant, a terrifying pressure filled the sky, and the world was suppressed. It's the aura of the golden-winged rock. The surrounding beasts were shocked. Some of them recognized the aura of the great golden-winged rocks. The pressure was even more powerful than that of the dragons. When the great golden-winged rocks appeared, Yi Piaoling, Qianguyu, Qi Guiyu, Mu Ruabai, and the others' eyes trembled. Greetings, President. The 18 celestial guards led by Yi Piaoling, Qianguyu, and the others bowed respectfully. The 18 celestial guards took orders from the president, and they only listened to the president. When the great golden-winged rocks appeared, they already knew who that figure was. No wonder Brother Qingchun was so confident. It turned out that he had nothing to fear. What's going on? Old Master Wei Jiejia, and the other disciples of House Wei were completely shocked. Their mouths were opened so wide that a duck egg could be stuffed in. Just what was the identity of the man who had been following them for the past few days? Why were even the terrifying 18 celestial guards saluting him respectfully at this moment? President, could he be? Wei Jiejia seemed to have thought of something. Her delicate body suddenly quivered, and her eyes trembled fiercely. In the sky, the great golden-winged rocks spread open. The muscles on Du Xiaofu's face were changing, and the scars were disappearing. He gradually returned to his original appearance, revealing a resolute face. His eyes were like lightning, intimidating and sharp. Du Xiaofu, you little bastard. You finally appeared. Dragon. When Du Xiaofu's figure was completely revealed, at this moment, a loud roar like a dragon's roar resounded from Long Teng's mouth. A sharp killing intent that caused one's heart to turn cold swept through the air as dragon patterns filled his eyes. Heavens, so he's the Demon King Du Xiaofu. Heavens, he's the Demon King Du Xiaofu. At this moment, the surroundings were in an uproar. That title was a contemporary legend. It's really him. He's the Demon King Du Xiaofu. Wei Jiejia's delicate body trembled, and her entire body quivered. The Demon King Du Xiaofu, that legendary man, had been by her side all these days. Recommended junior brother Feng Xiangyu's new book, Urban Super Prodigal, was already on the shelves. Chapter 1897. Little bastard, you won't be able to escape today. No one will be able to save you anymore. Long Ting shouted coldly with undisguised killing intent. Last time, he had joined forces with the School of Legalism and the School of Vertical and Horizontal to kill Xiao Chun, and had even dispatched a Saint Stage expert. In the end, they were stopped by the mysterious Fui Bai. The stronger this kid was, the greater his backing would be, and the more uneasy the dragons would be. They would pay any price to kill Xiao Chun and prevent future troubles. I wonder who will escape later? Du Xiaofu looked at Long Ting with a cold gaze, and a mocking smile hung on his lips. Even though Long Tong was already a Lord Region Realm expert and wasn't inferior to Li Chunfa and Qin Tian, he was still inferior to Qi Xingpu. Du Xiaofu had fought Qi Xingpu when he was at the peak of the Nirvana stage, and he had gained the upper hand. At this moment, he had already reached the Nirvana stage. So why would Du Xiaofu be worried about Long Tong? It was no longer the same as before. Every dog had its day, and Du Xiaofu was no longer a persimmon that could be kneaded by others. Stubborn, huh? Since that's the case, then let this ancestor see how much you've grown during this period of time, and whether you have the ability to be stubborn in front of this ancestor. Long Tongue laughed coldly as a cold light surged out from his eyes. With a sweep of his sleeve, a white energy pillar surged out from his body. It was like a cloud, and it looked like white clouds had covered the sky, causing faint, pitch-black spatial cracks to appear in the surrounding space. The terrifying dragon pressure was intimidating. How many of the living beings present had seen such an expert in action before, and all of them felt their souls tremble? The pressure is too terrifying. Those with lower cultivations turned pale, and their bodies trembled as if they were about to explode from the terrifying pressure. Du Xiaofu's golden wings flapped slightly as he sensed the powerful aura within Long Teng's body. Golden ripples erupted as the human form Peng floated in the air with a calm expression. Looking at Du Xiaofu's calm expression, Long Teng's face turned increasingly gloomy. The white energy was like a cloud that covered the void, and soon after, it also covered his body. Die, you little bastard. The instant Long Teng's figure disappeared, The white-colored energy in the empty space began to rapidly rotate like a vortex. A densely cold voice was emitted as a frightening energy storm swept towards Du Xiaofu like a tornado. Chi-la-la, spatial cracks were densely packed within the white energy storm. If an ordinary domain realm cultivator were to come into contact with it, their physical body would be instantly destroyed. Du Xiaofu remained expressionless. Resplendent golden runes shot out from the golden wings on his back. After that, his silhouette trembled as the great rock flapped its wings, bringing with it a wave of golden light. Instead of retreating, it advanced, rushing towards the energy storm. When his figure came into contact with the white energy storm, the golden wings of the Dapeng exploded with terrifying power, causing a wave of fluctuation in the white energy storm. Oomph! Longtong's cold snort was emitted from within the white energy storm. A claw print stretched out from the void like a dragon's claw. Layers of the void under the claw distorted as it pressed down on Du Xiaofu. Ayo! Du Xiaofu's fist was mixed with the roar of a dragon and the cry of an elephant as it ruthlessly blasted towards the claw. This was Du Xiaofu's tyrannical fistway. Du Xiaofu also did not hold back. He used one of his strongest attacks from the very beginning. Bang! A fist and a claw collided in the void, and a thunderous explosion of energy suddenly resounded. Broken runes and energy ripples quickly spread out, and the surrounding void was disintegrated by this kind of energy, causing turbulent waves to appear. The white clouds dispersed, revealing Longtong's figure. He staggered a few steps back in the void. His shoulders shook as he waved his sleeves. Only then did he disperse the tyrannical energy. On the other hand, Du Xiaofu's body trembled slightly. The golden light behind him was resplendent. It was obvious that he had the upper hand. "Old man, you don't seem to have made any progress at all." Du Xiaofu smiled faintly with a hint of ridicule. Longtong's strength was as he had expected. It was indeed incomparable to the Yin-Yang School's 7 stars break. Bastard! Listening to Du Xiaofu's words, Longtong's gaze could not help but twitch fiercely. This was sprinkling salt on the wound. Back then, Longting had lost a primordial spirit clone in the divine realm. Under such heavy injuries, he had not recovered until now. If he did not have a great opportunity in the future, it would be impossible for him to make any progress. For a cultivator, this was undoubtedly similar to death. "Brat, you're still a little inexperienced after all." Longting sneered as he clenched his fists with all his strength. In the faint sound of a dragon's roar, his figure was like thunder as he fiercely smashed towards Du Xiaofu through the air. At this moment, Longtong wanted to use his most powerful attack to crush the former. That brat's physical body was abnormal. His speed was also abnormal, and he even had several spiritual thunder in his body. He was too powerful and terrifying. However, Longtang did not believe that Du Xiaofu could really contend with him now. Li Qinfa and Qin Tian's battle was probably because they were careless, and he would definitely not follow in their footsteps. He wanted to end the battle quickly and kill Du Xiaofu. Rumble Longtong's punch was powerful and simple. The space in front of the fist distorted into a concave arc, and the invisible space emitted a dull sound that resounded through the void. Du Xiaofu raised his head and looked at the rapidly approaching figure in his eyes. The corner of his mouth slightly raised into a cold arc. His feet stepped on the waves of the free step, and the Dapeng golden wings flapped behind him. The strange changes of the free step and the speed of the Dapeng golden wings were superimposed, like adding wings to a tiger. It could be said that in terms of speed, Du Xiaofu activated the free step and the Dapeng golden wings. Among the cultivators of the same level, who could compare to him? Longtong's punch hit Du Xiaofu like a cannonball, causing the void to explode. Runes surged, but Du Xiaofu's figure had already disappeared. "Old man, your speed isn't enough." At the same time, Du Xiaofu's figure appeared in the void beside Longting. He didn't give Longting any time to react. The Dapeng golden wings on his back flapped, domineering and fierce. His right hand clenched into a fist, and with the roar of a dragon and the cry of an elephant, he punched at Longting again. This kind of attack was fast and ferocious. There was nothing fancy about it, only a terrifying surge of power. The void around the fist crumbled inch by inch, leaving behind a pitch-black vacuum. It was terrifying to the soul. Long Ting frowned inwardly when he sensed such a terrifying power. Long Tongue was an ancestor-level figure, a master of the beast region. He had lived for a long time and had rich battle experience. In the time it took for a spark to fly off a piece of flint, he suddenly leaned to the side in disbelief. A surge of energy suddenly appeared around him, covering his body with a layer of dragon scale-like armor. It was as if it was real. Roar at the same time, Long Tongue sneered. He opened his fist into a palm, and a cloud of light erupted from his palm. It shook the void, and a terrifying vortex appeared. An enormous dragon wanted to break through the void, roaring endlessly. Brat, you've already used this move. Have a taste of my dragon swallows of 10,000 miles. Long Tongue's cold voice was like thunder. He sneered, and the dragon in his palm roared ferociously, fiercely colliding with Du Xiaofu's fist. Chapter 1898. Domineering Fist Wei was overbearing and fierce as it ruthlessly smashed into the former's palm. Boom! The two collided, but only a slight sound was emitted. The terrifying power on Du Xiaofu's fist was swallowed by the huge dragon illusion and disappeared. This kind of change also caused Du Xiaofu to reveal a surprised expression. Brat, you are still too inexperienced. You are not enough to fight with this ancestor. Long Tang laughed coldly when he saw the surprised expression on Du Xiaofu's face. The devouring power in his palm became even more turbulent and stronger. Roar! Suddenly, Du Xiaofu let out a loud roar. The dragon's roar and elephant's cry was vast and mighty. The domineering roar was like thunder, causing the universe to rumble. The sound wave destroyed one's Yuan spirit and also destroyed the huge dragon illusion. It also caused Long Tongue's eyes to become a little dull. At the same time, a cold smile appeared in Du Xiaofu's eyes. Profound energy surged within the divine watchtower, emitting a rumbling sound. An even stronger, overbearing power charged out from his fist, after which it heavily smashed into Long Tongue's palm, bringing with it a terrifying force that was like a wild tide. The surrounding space was filled with pitch-black cracks. Puff puff! Long Ting spat out a mouthful of blood. His dull eyes suddenly regained their focus. However, the tangible armor on his body was also cracking. His body was like a bird with broken wings as he ruthlessly smashed into the ground from the sky. Bang bang! Long Tongue's body smashed into a mottled ancient rock wall. The ground cracked continuously, forming arm-sized cracks. Dragon blood flowed out from his palm. Clearly, it was caused by Du Xiaofu's punch just now. The dragon's scale-like armor on his body was also disappearing. The surrounding living creatures all retreated. Some of the unlucky ones were crushed by the invisible energy that scattered. There was no way to reason with them. Haha, good, very good. Ever since this ancestor stepped into the master region, no one has been able to put me in such a miserable state. You are the first. Long Tongue stood up and wiped the few strands of blood on his beard. His expression had completely darkened. He sneered and shouted angrily. An increasingly dark and cold-killing intent spread out from his body. Didn't I destroy one of your clones last time? Du Xiaofu smiled faintly, unconcerned. I'm not done with you, you little bastard. Long Tongue was furious. This was like rubbing salt on his wound. His figure rushed out, and light erupted. He transformed into a huge white cloud dragon. The dragon claws waved, and the dragon might was unparalleled. Dragon breath rolled out. Ow! The dragon's roar shook the heavens and the earth. The enormous dragon's body swooped down from the sea of clouds with its huge tail in the air. It raised its head and opened its ferocious mouth. The dragon's eyes were as bright as the Milky Way. Its dragon claws tore through the void and covered a large area, grabbing towards Du Xiaofu. Transforming into a dragon's body was Long Tongue's strongest state. Long Tongue was an ancestor of dragons and a main region expert. His reputation was definitely not just for show. Previously, when Du Xiaofu had killed his doppelganger, it was also because his doppelganger had been greatly suppressed in the divine domain. It wasn't his original strength. Boom! It was also at this moment that the void exploded. Golden light shone brightly, and dazzling runes flowed. Du Xiaofu flapped his wings and soared into the sky. His aura suddenly surged, and he was like a god standing tall. A terrifying pressure spread out, making people want to kneel down and kowtow. At this moment, Du Xiaofu was like a real rock that had appeared in the world. It was terrifying. Purple gold runes shone in his eyes, and it was as if there was a golden-winged rock above him. Lightning flashed, thunder rumbled, stars rotated, and purple flames surged. At this moment, these pairs of eyes were reflecting a shocking phenomenon. Boom! Facing the huge dragon, Du Xiaofu didn't retreat at all. He shook his arm, and the golden wings on his back flapped. He directly slapped out a palm. Light spread out from the palm. It was resplendent and dazzling. Runes flickered, and it quietly contained a destructive fluctuation that made people's hearts tremble. A diagram of the 8 trigrams covered Du Xiaofu's palm. Waves surged, and runes intertwined to form a palm. It was filled with destructive power, and it didn't stop at all as it collided with the huge dragon. The palm collided head-on with the huge dragon. In an instant, the entire void trembled. Crack, crack. The void was chaotic, and all kinds of dazzling runes drowned out everything. Space directly cracked, and a large number of pitch-black spatial cracks appeared. It was like a black hole that swallowed everything. Phenomena filled the sky. Dragon roared, and the space became chaotic. Energy storms swept out in all directions. This scene caused the gazes below to be stupefied. Their hearts palpitated as their expressions changed from shock. They didn't dare to imagine a battle like this. Roar! The huge dragon's body retreated. Its huge head was lifted up by the spatial waves. The dragon's body twisted, and a large mouthful of dragon blood spurted out as it roared. Oh my God! Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. What kind of divine might was this? He had heavily injured Long Tongue's main body with a single palm strike. Just how terrifying was the power contained in the body that seemed so small, compared to the huge dragon, to be able to create such a shocking scene? The 18 celestial guards raised their heads and looked at the void. Their eyes were full of brilliance. Qi. When Long Tongue's body was forced back, Du Xiaofu's mouth once again curled into a faint sneer. In an instant, there were arcs of lightning that were difficult to detect that swept out from the void. Du Xiaofu's figure also disappeared in an instant. Qi la la, arcs of lightning filled the air. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled in the surrounding void. A terrifying destructive aura swept out. When Du Xiaofu's figure appeared again, he was already above Long Ting's ferocious head. At this moment, Long Tongue seemed to have felt something. His dragon pupils shrank, and for no reason, a chill climbed up his dragon soul. His huge body quickly retreated, but it was too late. The golden wings behind Du Xiaofu's back shone with golden light, shaking the void and imprisoning it. Indestructible. You've broken through to the indestructible realm. Long Tang discovered that the aura that imprisoned the void had reached the indestructible realm. The kid in front of him had already reached the indestructible realm in this short period of time. When he first heard the name Du Xiaofu, he was just an ant. Long Tongue didn't even pay attention to him. It wasn't until Long 8, Long 7, and the others were killed one after another that Long Ting truly noticed Du Xiaofu. In the space of the divine realm, Long Tang truly began to pay attention and wanted to get rid of him. But at that time, Long Tongue still didn't really take it to heart. It was just that the kid was lucky time and time again, and someone saved him. But at this moment, feeling the indestructible cultivation aura on Du Xiaofu's body, the shock in Long Tongue's heart was indescribable. The human that he had regarded as an ant had already reached the indestructible realm in this short period of time. A Nirvana Grand Supreme was equivalent to completely surpassing him. Not good. Long Tongue was terrified. He was inexplicably terrified. In an instant, he threw out all his trump cards without holding back. He erupted with all his strength and desperately retreated. Ao, 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 ao. Dragon roars were endless. Giant dragon shadows rose up one after another. Dragon might rolled and shattered the void. Chapter 1899. Rumble. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled in the void. Du Xiaofu flapped his wings and soared into the sky. Silver-gold electric arcs intertwined in his hands, flashing resplendently. Accompanied by the starlight, they formed a silver-gold starlight spear in front of him. This silver-gold starlight spear was formed by several types of spiritual thunder and lightning martial veins in Du Xiaofu's body. The void suddenly rumbled and trembled. A supreme pressure descended, thunder and lightning intertwined. Swish! This spear pierced through the void. Wherever it passed, a pitch-black spatial crack hung in the sky, destroying everything. The giant dragon shadows shattered inch by inch. In the end, the silver-gold starlight spear swept into Long Tongue's head like a resplendent thunderbolt. The spear had no head, causing the energy of heaven and earth to become chaotic. The silver-gold starlight spear pierced through Long Tongue's head, shocking the surrounding creatures who were already trembling in fear. PFFF, Long Tongue spat out large mouthfuls of blood. His huge dragon body fell at the same time. A resplendent white light shot out from between his eyebrows, piercing through the void and escaping rapidly. Rumble, thunder, and lightning intertwined in the void. Silver-gold arcs of starlight quietly filled the void and turned into a huge lightning tree. It was suffused with a soul-sucking aura and confined the bright white light that was trying to escape within the roots of the lightning tree. Roar! The dragon's roar was deafening. The resplendent white light faded, and a crystal-clear white cloud dragon appeared. Its eyes were filled with fear and despair. That was Long Tongue's dragon soul primordial spirit. However, at this moment, it was bound by the lightning tree roots and was naturally suppressed. It could no longer escape. The lightning tree turned into a resplendent electric arc and swept back to between Du Xiaofu's eyebrows, disappearing. Bang, bang, bang. The huge dragon corpse fell heavily on the ground, causing the earth to shake and the mountains to shake. The ground of the small town cracked, and the mountains outside the town collapsed. It was frightening. Gugu, looking at the huge dragon corpse on the ground, the surrounding creatures raised their heads and looked at the man in the void. He had a pair of wings on his back, and a golden light rushed into the sky. He was a god, and also the Demon King. Gugu. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air, all of them trembling in fear. The Wei clan disciples were all flabbergasted. How could they have imagined that the Mr. Qiao, who had been by their side for the past few days, was actually the great rock emperor of the desolate country? Witnessing his terrifying strength with their own eyes was even more shocking. There had been some House Wei disciples who felt that his bold declaration of sweeping through all the supreme geniuses of the heavenly devil battlefield had been a little too boastful. But now, they were speechless. Demon King Du Xiaofu had already swept through his peers in this world. Today, even an old ancestor of the dragon race was killed. How terrifying. This guy, Zhen at this moment, Long Tongue's Long's dragon body dragon. Originally, Zhen Xingchun was confident that Du Xiaofu would definitely be able to withstand Long Tongue. However, he did not expect Du Xiaofu's strength to actually reach such a level and easily kill Long Tongue. Boom! Du Xiaofu appeared on top of Long Tongue's dragon corpse. A vast golden light swept out from his palm and enveloped the dragon corpse. Then, with a burst of light, the huge dragon corpse gradually shrank to a length of several zhang. Dragon scales filled the air as Du Xiaofu put it into his Qinkuan pouch. I'm going to seclude myself here for a few days. Du Xiaofu retracted his golden pong wings and landed beside Zhen Xingchun and the 18 celestial guards. He was going to seclude himself for a few days. Du Xiaofu was not afraid of the dragons in the heavenly devil battlefield. It would be better if the school of vertical and horizontal and legalism did not come. If they did, he would be more than happy to oblige. All right, I'll keep an eye on things for you. Don't worry about anything else. I'll tell you in detail after you come out of seclusion. Zhen Xingchun nodded. He knew that Du Xiaofu had just bound Long Tongue's dragon soul origin spirit. He probably needed time to refine it. That would bring him great benefits. A while later, the bones of the several dozen dragons were unceremoniously collected by the 18 celestial guards into their Qinkuan pouches. Much of the serpent dragon and beast meat was directly roasted by Zhen Xingchun, Stone, Qi Guiyu, and the others. They ate heartily. Many of the spectating creatures in the distance felt their hairs stand on end, especially the beasts. The people of the desolate country are just as savage as the demon king Du Xiaofu. Some of the beasts did not dare to stay for long. They were afraid that the terrifying 18 celestial guards would want to eat them alive. Du Xiaofu sat with his legs crossed in the desolate ancient space. The silvernet soul-devouring thunder in his soul had devoured and refined Long Tongue's dragon soul origin spirit. He circulated the mysterious incomplete cultivation method, working together to refine Long Tongue's dragon soul origin spirit into his own pure soul. Terrifying waves of soul energy surged through his mud pill palace. Long Tongue was one of the ancestors of the dragons. His dragon soul origin spirit was extremely powerful. Although Du Xiaofu had removed the impurities and retained the essence, he had only obtained 10 or 20% of the original soul energy. After all, this was not the power of a soul that he had cultivated himself, so he was unable to devour it all. However, 10 or 20% was still absolutely terrifying. This was the heavenly demon battlefield. Saints were still unable to enter. Du Xiaofu did not fear legalism. If the dragons or the school of vertical and horizontal came looking for him, it would be even better if they did. Time gradually passed. Under the refinement of the silvernet soul-devouring thunder and the mysterious incomplete cultivation method, Long Tongue's dragon soul origin spirit was completely refined. Du Xiaofu's dragon soul origin spirit grew by quite a bit. A Lord Region Dragon Corpse. This is a treasure. When Long Tongue's dragon soul origin spirit was completely refined, Du Xiaofu took out Long Tongue's dragon soul origin spirit from his Chinkuan bag. It was suffused with multicolored light. It was just a corpse. It had lost its vitality and had shrunk to several meters in size. However, it was still suffused with a terrifying dragon might. Such a dragon corpse was definitely a great treasure. Its value was immeasurable. Walala, large amounts of refining materials flew out from Du Xiaofu's Chinkuan bag. They emitted a treasure light that illuminated the desolate country. Do it. Narrowing his eyes, Du Xiaofu's expression became a little more serious. Flames surged in his hand, and a blazing spiritual flame appeared. Du Xiaofu wanted to refine Long Tongue's dragon corpse into a puppet to condense a spiritual furnace talisman cauldron. For an ordinary talisman master, refining a dragon corpse like Long Tongue was simply impossible. The consumption was too great. Du Xiaofu was not too worried. If he refined Long Tongue's dragon corpse into a puppet, it would be a great help to him when the time came. Chila, condensing a spiritual furnace talisman cauldron. Raging flames surged like divine fire. Du Xiaofu waved his hand, and a formless claw distorted the space, wrapping Long Tongue's dragon corpse and throwing it into the spiritual furnace talisman cauldron. Oh! A dragon's roar resounded. Long Tongue's dragon corpse trembled, transforming back into its original huge body, traversing through the desolate ancient space. Walala! The spiritual furnace talisman cauldron expanded. Du Xiaofu's hand seals quickly condensed, and his figure sat cross-legged on top of the spiritual furnace talisman cauldron. Surging profound energy supported the spiritual furnace talisman cauldron, and the power of his soul swept out, accompanied by arcs of lightning. Walala! As Long Tongue's dragon corpse entered the spiritual furnace talisman cauldron, the white dragon scales were immediately covered in raging flames. In the blazing flames, a sizzling sound immediately erupted. However, these dragon scales were too hard. Even if Long Tongue was already dead, these dragon scales were still a treasure that was difficult to destroy. But Du Xiaofu was no longer the same as before. Being able to kill Long Tongue, how could he not be able to deal with Long Tongue's dragon corpse? What's more, Du Xiaofu wasn't trying to destroy the dragon scales. Instead, he was trying to temper Long Tongue's physical body to become even more solid. On the contrary, he couldn't destroy the dragon scales. This was the puppet's final line of defense. In the midst of the raging flames, the dragon scales were unceasingly twitching. As time slowly passed, on Long Tongue's dragon corpse, those layers of dragon scales unceasingly overflowed with traces of blood, before finally dissipating into white mist due to the high temperature. All of this seemed extremely cruel and bloody. Fortunately, Long Tongue was already dead and didn't have any consciousness. Otherwise, this would have been the most miserable torture. Du Xiaofu didn't feel any cruelty or bloodiness. This Long Tongue wanted to kill him time and time again, and the dragons intercepted him several times on the way. How could he be polite now? Focusing all his attention on controlling the flames in the cauldron, Du Xiaofu didn't dare to show any carelessness. If the flames in the cauldron were too great, they would be enough to burn Long Tongue's corpse to ashes. If the flames were too small, the temperature would not be enough, and the impurities in Long Tongue's corpse would not be refined, which would fail to meet the requirements for refining a puppet. However, in general, Long Tongue was only left with his corpse. Compared to refining a living puppet, it was much easier. Under Du Xiaofu's refinement, the impurities in the dragon corpse were gradually refined. The dragon's scales glowed, and mist filled the surroundings. The crystalline dragon tendons, bones, and flesh were filled with inscriptions that radiated with light. At a glance, it seemed to possess a shocking amount of power. The body of a Lord Domain expert was definitely terrifying in the first place. After being refined, it had reached a whole new level. Du Xiaofu consumed a lot of energy through such a refinement. His face was rather pale, and his forehead was covered in sweat. What came next was the second step, which required refining a large amount of puppet materials. The time in the desolate country was very loose, while the time in the small town seemed rather slow. With that great battle, the descent of the 18 heavenly generals and the child of the sacred array, the cowardly creatures had already left the town, afraid of provoking some trouble. They were also afraid of the dragons coming for revenge, which would cause them to be affected. Some of the bolder ones stayed in the vicinity, watching from afar, thinking that they might be able to obtain some benefits. If the dragons came for revenge, they would be able to watch the show. The treasure has chosen you, so it shouldn't be harmful to you. Try communicating with your soul. Once it truly recognizes you as its master, it will be a great opportunity for you. In a simple courtyard, Zheng Xingchun said to Wei Jiejia, who was sitting cross-legged with her eyes closed. He guided her to communicate with the extraordinary sword in her Naiwan palace. He was becoming more and more satisfied with this disciple of his. Secret puppet technique, condense. At a certain time, Du Xiaofu's eyes shone brightly in the desolate ancient space. White light rippled all over his body, and the huge spiritual furnace and talisman cauldron transformed into a boiling liquid, pouring onto the dragon corpse like a flood. Hiss, hiss. The boiling liquid poured onto the dragon corpse, producing sizzling sounds. Inscriptions pulsed and shone resplendently. The white dragon corpse also began to dark green. The layers of scales shone with an icy green metallic luster. It was chilling and terrifying.